Chapter 2000. In front of the true dragon wall, Qin Hao once again entered a state of enlightenment. The perfect celestial wheel in his body silently rotated, imperceptibly emitting a divine will of the great path. Gradually, he felt the scenery around him disappear, and his consciousness was immersed in the stone wall. In a vast and endless world, he saw the domineering dragon. This dragon coiled in the void, suppressing the great path. Any consciousness that entered the stone wall seemed insignificant before it. As long as it thought, it seemed that everything would turn to ashes. Could it be because I have the power of the dragon that my divine will can enter the stone wall unimpeded to see the true dragon? Qin Hao thought seriously. The will emitted by the true dragon wall was extremely majestic and tyrannical. Cultivators from all realms had experienced it, and it was obvious to all. However, it was very easy for his divine will to penetrate it. It was easier than comprehending the seven-sword mountain. Qin Hao did not know if others were like him. But in short, it seemed that the divine technique of the dragon clan hidden in the stone wall was not difficult to take out. I have the power of the original realm, forged a perfect celestial wheel, and am Wuk of the great path. I have a unique, innate advantage. Perhaps I can only do this by borrowing the divine will of the dragon clan. If the true dragon wall was too simple, it would be too cheap and illogical. After all, it hid the supreme technique of the true dragon sword realm. Qin Hao felt that he was being overly suspicious. How many people with his qualifications could be found in the untainted universe? Only the god kings of the Archean world. The cultivators gathered at the true dragon wall could not be like him, and their divine will could easily break in. The dragon is formed by the divine will. The true dragon's roar sounds like it has something to do with the great path of rhythm. How can I comprehend this technique? Qin Hao looked at the dragon. At this time, his eyes became demonic. Flame patterns appeared, as if they could see through all the illusions in the world. When his gaze fell on the dragon's body, everything became clearer and more penetrating. The sturdy scales, the slightly wriggling dragon body, and the terrifying dragon eyes contained a majesty and nobility that despised all living beings. Other than that, he could not see anything else. Where was the dragon's roar technique? This is a pure manifestation of dragon will. It has no thoughts and cannot be communicated with. If you want to witness a divine skill, there must be some other trigger conditions. Qin Hao could clearly sense the will of the true dragon from the divine dragon through the Tianlun. The 10,000 spirit fire pupils could also see through all illusions. Since it truly existed, there must be other conditions to awaken the divine dragon and trigger the dragon roar divine technique. The words left on the stone wall said that Senior Long Fan entered Buddhism with a single thought. From then on, he drew a clear line with the true dragon sword realm and no longer used the name of the dragon family. In consideration of his descendants, he left the true dragon roar of the dragon family here. The profundities of the dragon family must be experienced by the disciples of the dragon family. Dragon clan? That's the main point. Qin Hao chuckled. He suddenly felt enlightened. Long Fan had publicly spread the dragon clan's supreme divine skill to the outside world. How could ordinary people get their hands on it so easily? His words never left the dragon clan. He had clearly told everyone that those who were not descendants of the dragon clan would not be able to get their hands on it. Such courage and confidence were worthy of a master of a generation. Qin Hao finally understood. No wonder his divine consciousness could easily penetrate the stone wall. Others could do it too. It had nothing to do with the power of the original realm. Longfan's purpose was to tell everyone that there was the Dragon Clan's supreme divine skill here. However, if one wanted to comprehend the Dragon Way, only the descendants of the Dragon Clan could do it. Only someone with such guts was worthy of a divine master. When he thought of this, Qin Hao's body shook. His consciousness transformed into a divine dragon that roared out and meandered between heaven and earth. Dark red flames flowed on the dragon's body and faced Long Fan's divine will across space. In an instant, two extremely domineering divine dragons appeared between heaven and earth, suppressing the universe. Junior Qin Hao, as a descendant of the Dragon Clan, begged Senior to teach me the Dragon Roar divine technique. Qin Hao, who had turned into a 1,000-foot-long fire dragon, said in a human voice. Roar. Long Fan's divine will moved. When Qin Hao's body emitted a monstrous dragon might, the 10,000-foot-long divine dragon that stood in the void suddenly rose. In an instant, heaven and earth trembled. Even the great path was about to be shattered as the divine dragon danced. Then, the dragon soared into the sky and let out an earth-shattering dragon roar that shook the universe. Terrifying sound waves reverberated and pressed down on Qin Hao's body, breaking through his divine light and piercing into his spiritual soul. At this moment, Qin Hao felt that his body was about to be shattered. His consciousness was also about to be torn into pieces by this earth-shattering dragon roar. That terrifying pressure was indescribable. The dragon roar was earth-shattering, so powerful. Qin Hao turned into a fire dragon and twisted in the void. Under the sound waves, he seemed to be in extreme pain. Faintly, his body that was left in the outside world felt that the heavenly wheel in his body was breaking. This dragon roar shook the soul, broke the heavenly wheel, and destroyed divine power. It was all-pervasive and extremely overbearing. It should be known that Qin Hao had created a perfect heavenly path and forged Wux's perfect heavenly wheel. Even he could barely withstand it. If it were anyone else, even their divine will would have been destroyed under the attack of Long Fan's divine sound waves. No wonder Long Fan was so arrogant and publicly left the supreme divine skill of the Dragon Clan in the Kunlun Sea to let the world know. Not to mention that non-members of the Dragon Clan could not awaken the dragon to use the roar technique. Even if they did, they would die under this dragon roar. Even if the descendants of the Dragon Clan in the true Dragon Sword realm were here, it would be difficult for them to withstand it. Long Fan was obviously going to pass it on to the direct descendants of the Dragon Clan. Only the most orthodox descendants of the Dragon Clan could withstand this dragon roar with the help of the same bloodline. Buzz. The divine dragon roar sound waves converged and turned into wisps of light that entered the fire dragon's ears. They merged with Qin Hao's divine will and merged into his spiritual soul, flowing into the heavenly wheel. The supreme divine skill of the Dragon Clan had been obtained. At this moment, in the outside world, in front of the true dragon wall, everything was normal. There was nothing out of the ordinary. Besides Qin Hao, no one else could hear the Nine Heavens dragon roar that shook the world and shattered the universe, and they couldn't sense the slightest bit of dragon intent from the wall. Even so, some people noticed the difference. Lin Xian and Chi's eyes fell on Qin Hao. At this moment, a layer of sacred Buddha light appeared on Qin Hao's body. He looked solemn and dignified as if he had been cast into a Buddha golden body. It was difficult for him not to attract attention. Not only did the dragon roar technique of the Dragon Clan remain in the real dragon wall, Long Fan had also integrated the true dragon roar into Buddhist principles and improved it, evolving it into other divine skills. Obviously, Qin Hao did not stop after obtaining the dragon roar technique. He was still comprehending other divine skills, trying to dig out all the divine skills that Long Fan had when he had entered Buddhism. There were signs of success, so his body was filled with Buddha light, like a golden body, becoming more and more dazzling. This scene surprised the Illusion Elder. Along the way, Qin Hao had shown many extraordinary talents. Now, he had even comprehended the Dragon Clan's divine skill of the real Dragon Sword world. Xiaohan and Wuk both looked at Qin Hao. Unknowingly, the two of them took a few steps closer to him. According to the situation, Qin Hao had most likely cultivated the real dragon roar, so they had to be wary of others secretly attacking him. This boy is covered in Buddha light and faintly exuding a wisp of dragon might. Could it be that he has cultivated the supreme, divine skill of the real Dragon Sword world? An expert pointed at Qin Hao and said with an incredulous expression. All the experts present were also surprised. As time passed, they saw Qin Hao's Buddha light become more and more intense. Their surprise gradually turned into shock. In the past years of the Kunlun Sea, it was not that no one had come to comprehend the real Dragon Wall, but that no one had succeeded. It was too difficult. At least someone from the Seven Sword Mountain had comprehended the 5 styles of the Sword Peak, but the Dragon Clan's divine skill contained in the real Dragon Wall could not be felt at all. Someone once said that when their divine consciousness entered the wall, they saw a divine dragon. No one knew if it was true or not. Unfortunately, it was a dragon without thoughts. Even after observing for a long time, they could not understand the dragon roar technique. Later, a disciple of the Dragon Clan from the real Dragon Sword world came here to comprehend, but he was seriously injured and almost lost his life. Until now, no one had cultivated Long Fan's divine skill. Was it going to be broken by someone now? Lin Xian and Cheese was stared at Qin Hao. The murderous intent in Lin Xian's eyes became more and more intense. Previously, when the flowers in the heavenly lake bloomed and the Flower Queen acted strangely, he thought that the problem might be related to Qin Hao. However, Lin Xian was unwilling to admit it. Now, after seeing Qin Hao's Buddha light and the dragon's might, he confirmed that the Flower Queen was most likely caused by Li Chuji. Looks like you can't be left alive. Lin Xian gritted his teeth and said. Further ahead was the tomb of exalted Zihua. Li Chuji could awaken the Flower Queen and break through the 7 Sword Mountain. Now, he was covered in Buddha light and seemed to have comprehended the real dragon roar. All these performances made Lin Xian have a bold and absurd idea. Li Chuji could also seize the will of Kunlun and become the ruler of Kunlun after exalted Zihua. This idea sounded absurd, but became deeper and deeper in Lin Xian's heart. It seemed more and more realistic. He would not allow it. He would never allow it to happen. He had to get rid of Li Chuji before he reached his destination. However, at this moment, a monstrous sound wave swept out. The towering stone wall in front of everyone exploded. Smoke and dust filled the air, and sacred swastikas flew out. These swastikas flew towards Qin Hao and landed on his body. They melted into his flesh and blood, making his body radiant with Buddha light. The light shot up into the sky. It was as if he had turned into a golden Buddha that was born in front of everyone. This, the real Dragon Wall, is destroyed. Many people exclaimed. Countless people looked at Qin Hao, who was in a state of enlightenment. Even a fool could tell that the divine will of the Dragon Clan and the real Dragon Wall had been refined and absorbed by Qin Hao. It had become a part of him. Boom! Lin Xian took a step forward. He clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles cracked. Just as he had expected, Li Chuji had taken out the lost skills of the real dragon. His nightmare had become a reality. In that case, it was clear who the Flower Emperor was acting for. Lin Xian, what are you doing? Chu Ning saw what Lin Xian was doing and quickly blocked him. Lin Xian glanced at Chu Ning and ignored her. He stared at Qin Hao and said in a hoarse voice, You took out the true Dragon Hao. Ha! It seems that you have good taste. I know about what happened at the Divine Workshop. You wanted to take this person under your wing. Unfortunately, he did not appreciate it. Cheesewell laughed heartily. He pointed at Qin Hao and added fuel to the fire. You see, he can take out Senior Longfan's true dragon's roar. With such ability, why would he need to work for you and listen to your whims? Shut up. Lin Xian turned around and scolded him. He took a step forward towards Qin Hao and said, Tell me, did you take out the true Dragon Hao? The towering dragon wall shattered, and the miracles disappeared. The space was silent. Everyone's eyes were on Qin Hao. Like Lin Xian, they were waiting for an accurate answer. At that moment, Qin Hao's closed eyes finally opened slowly. He turned to Lin Xian and said, Get lost. Roar. With the word scram, a 10,000 zhong long divine dragon appeared behind Qin Hao. Its radiance was boundless, and it was tyrannical beyond compare. Then a strong wind raged. The divine dragon opened its mouth and roared at Lin Xian. In an instant, heaven and earth were turned upside down. Everything seemed to be torn apart and shattered. The sound wave turned into a terrifying sound wave that swept towards Lin Xian and all the other Lin people. Chapter 2001. The Divine Dragon descended, roaring the great path of the universe. The sound waves drowned out everything, including Lin Xian. In an instant, Lin Xian's expression changed drastically. When the dragon's roar sounded in his ears, the blood in his body was shaken to the point of boiling. He vomited at his feet, feeling as if his spiritual soul had been shattered. "Young Master Xian, be careful." Lin Rui stepped forward. His body was filled with divine light, and the celestial wheel was activated. He slapped with one hand and struck out a turbulent law, which collided with the true dragon roar. Bang! Lin Xian was directly sent flying and fell to the ground. His face was frighteningly pale. If Lin Rui hadn't acted in time, he might have been killed on the spot. At that moment, the expressions of countless cultivators in the surroundings changed drastically as they looked at Qin Hao. The divine dragon's might was overwhelming. Although it disappeared immediately after it appeared, the dragon's roar was so powerful that it shook the hearts of everyone present. The moment the roar landed on Lin Xian's body, it seemed to have also roared into everyone's souls. Lin Xian lay on the ground for a long time and was unable to stand up. His head was dizzy, and he was greatly affected. He shook his head with all his might, and only then was he able to stand up shakily with great difficulty. When he looked at Qin Hao once more, his gaze had become extremely gloomy, and his face was burning. As a direct descendant of the Lin family, he was actually knocked to the ground by a roar. For Lin Xian, it was the greatest shame of his life. A Nirvana Realm cultivator was knocked to the ground by a Nirvana Realm cultivator and vomited blood. He even needed the family's celestial wheel experts to save him. If I were you, I would go as far as possible to save the face of our ancestors. Chuning attacked Lin Xian without hesitation. The three major families in Kunlun had always been fighting openly and secretly. They would take action whenever they had the opportunity. If it were Lin Xian, it would be the same. Chuning, we are all local forces in Kunlun. Even if we are fighting, you don't have to help an outsider, right? Chizwa said with a smile. You have a nerve to speak? Chuning glanced at Chizwa. Brother Lin, the Chu family intends to stand up for Li Chuji. If you can tolerate this, Chizwa, will have to look at you in a different light. Chizwa continued to fan the flames. The Lin family of Kunlun is doing something. I hope that friend from all walks of life can give us some face and move away immediately. Otherwise, you will be regarded as an enemy of the Lin family. A cold glint shot out from Lin Xian's eyes as he scanned the crowd in an extremely arrogant and overbearing manner. Immediately, one figure after another approached. The masters of the Lin people had already silently surrounded Qin Hao's group. Now that their master had given the order to kill, no matter where they were, they had to make sure that those who trampled on the Lin people would never return. If you don't leave, don't blame the old man for being ruthless. His voice, which was imbued with divine will, reverberated in the air and reverberated in the ears of the cultivators from all realms. In an instant, a suffocating pressure descended upon the space. Retreat. Many powerhouses left one after another, leaping away from the ruins of the true Dragon Wall. Although some of them had powerful backgrounds and were not afraid of the Lin clan, it was difficult for a strong dragon to suppress a local snake. In the end, this was the land of Kunlun, and the heavenly wheel realm of the outside world was weaker. Moreover, the true Dragon Wall had been destroyed, so there was no need to leave behind any insights. One by one, the powerhouses left one after another. Many of them were of the divine path and had come from different continents. In the face of the local snake of Kunlun, they chose to avoid it. Young Masterswa, when the fight starts later, the masters of the Qi clan will help me. Is that okay? Lin Xian looked at Chizwa. Li Chuji's team had a heavenly wheel realm cultivator and Chu Ning, so they would have some scruples when facing the Chu clan. If the Qi clan was willing to join forces, then there would be nothing to fear. Lin Xian naturally did not think that they would lose. He was only afraid that when the fight started, Li Chuji would escape. At this time, he needed Chizwa's strength to block the escaping people and end the battle quickly. They would be wiped out, so that the Kunlun people would not be able to talk about it. After all, this was someone else's territory. Okay, leave it to me. Chizwa nodded happily, his smiling eyes emitting a cold, murderous intent. During the crossing of the sea, if Li Chuji had not caused trouble, then Chu Ning would have been eliminated. All of this was Li Chuji's own fault. Chizwa waved his hand behind him. The powerhouses of the Qi clan immediately spread out and stood in different directions in the void. Their aura spread out and shrouded the space, preventing Qin Hao and the others from escaping. The Lin clan of Kunlun and the Qi clan had joined forces. Chu Ning, since we are both descendants of the Kunlun aristocratic families, I will give you a chance to leave, Lin Xian said coldly. The battle formation had been set. Li Chuji and the others would not be able to escape, but he did not want to fall out with the Chu clan. Chu Ning secretly glanced at Qin Hao. At this time, Qin Hao said, Xiao Ning, you go to the tomb of the supreme martial artist first. We will meet up later. The Lin clan and the Qi clan had 4 heavenly wheels of the divine path. There were dozens of nirvana realms and more than 200 emperor realms. This battle formation was extremely dangerous. Qin Hao and Chu Ning had not known each other for a long time. If she left, he would not mind. After all, Chu Ning was not like Wuk and the others. She had followed him all the way, and no matter what happened, she could shoulder it. A teacher for a day, a father for life. Master, you're underestimating me. I will not leave. Chu Ning gritted her teeth. Her clenched fists trembled slightly. She stared at Lin Xian and Chizwa. She knew what she would face if she stayed. She might really die. I only have the illusion lord by my side. Qin Hao said. The 4 heavenly wheels of the opponent, Gue Tu, Lin Rue, and the 2 powerhouses of the Qi clan, were not affected by the weakening of the heavenly path of Kunlun. The battle strength of the 2 sides was not equal at all. From a perspective of a bystander, this was a battle to the death. Master, didn't you say that I don't have a divine item to protect me? I do. Chu Ning opened her palms. With a buzzing sound, a huge alchemy cauldron appeared from her palms and landed heavily on the ground. When it stood up, it was more than 10 meters tall and looked extremely domineering. True divine cauldron, clan leader Chu is really bold. He dares to put a divine cauldron in your hands. Chizwa's eyelids twitched. This was clan leader Chu's divine item. Once it was damaged, its owner would also be injured. It seems that you're determined to help outsiders against Kunlun. Then don't blame the Lin clan for not showing mercy. Kill them. Lin Xian pointed forward and ordered fiercely. Yes. The experts of the Lin clan moved at the same time. Suddenly, countless rays of light exploded in the air. An earth-shattering aura pressed down. It was extremely terrifying. Chu Ning and Li Chuji must be alive. He has the Sword Emperor's secret art and has comprehended the true dragon howl. Kill the others. Lin Xian shouted. He was extremely cold. At this moment, Huan Zun, Wuk, Xiao Han, and Kuang Tang's expressions were extremely serious. They all released the power of their will. Unfortunately, the difference in strength between the 2 sides was too great. They obviously couldn't stop it. They could only hope that the upper echelons of Kunlun Sea would come out to resolve the crisis. Die. In the void, a nirvana will of the way fell down. It carried with it a terrifying fire of the way. It burned the space until it crackled. It directly tilted towards Xiao Han and Kuang Tang's heads. Insolent ants. Huan Zun's feet shook the ground. He leaped up and reached out with his hand. Under the cover of his will, the space suddenly became extremely heavy. The fire of the way was annihilated midway. It was forcefully suppressed by the power of the great path of space. Huan Zun threw a punch. The fist broke through the air and directly pierced through the opponent's chest. The Lin clan expert exploded into nothingness on the spot. A 7th-level Nirvana cultivator couldn't fight back at all against the Divine Path cultivator. Leave this person to me. The bloated supreme god Gue Tu stepped out. He grabbed the wine gourd and took a sip. Then he threw on the ground. As the wine entered his throat, Gue Tu's body bloomed with dazzling divine path light. A huge heavenly wheel appeared and flowed over his body. Fierce divine power flowed through his limbs and bones. Except for a small part of his body that was not covered More than 50% of his body was opened by the divine power. This, countless cultivators who were watching the battle were shocked. The heavenly wheel that covered Gui-Tu's body and the strength of the divine power that erupted clearly surpassed the ordinary heavenly wheel. It was close to the great heavenly wheel. The old man who was protecting the silver-haired youth was most likely going to die. Gui-Tu's divine power spread out and enveloped Huanzun. Huanzun immediately felt an enormous pressure. Qin Hao raised his eyes and glanced at Gui-Tu's day. No wonder this person was so arrogant before. He robbed so many divine path cultivators one after another and went on a rampage. He had forged Lunli that was close to the great heavenly wheel. In addition, Gui-Tu was not weakened by the heavenly path of Kunlun. In this battle with Huanzun, Huanzun was bound to lose. At this moment, Qin Hao calmed down. The great void sword flashed with divine light beside him. A wisp of sword that contained perfect Lunli broke through the air and trembled in the sky. In the dark, an invisible force was transmitted back and merged with Qin Hao's divine will. It converged on Huanzun's body and flowed into his heavenly wheel. Huanzun's mind shook. He felt that the divine power in his heavenly wheel had been strengthened. The light that erupted from his body suddenly grew stronger. Vaguely, his momentum was not much weaker than Gui-Tu's. With a roar, he pressed his palm forward. Kill! Gui-Tu was not the only one who attacked. The nearly 200 people of the Lin clan all rushed toward Qin Hao. They either attacked with will or used martial arts techniques. Light and shadows covered the sky and earth, like a rainstorm falling from the sky. Qin Hao stood quietly in the distance, looking up at the impenetrable light. He pointed his finger upward, and the great void sword rose against the sky. At the same time, the sound of Buddhist scriptures faintly sounded in the void. The sound of Sanskrit filled the air and spread into everyone's ears. The sacred Buddhist scriptures were invisible, but they were real and everywhere. Just as the attacks from all the heavens fell, the divine dragon suddenly appeared again. Its might suppressed the great path of heaven and earth, and it roared toward the sky. When the sound waves whizzed past, the sky and earth trembled. All the great path of heaven was torn into the void and turned into ashes. Puff, puff, puff. The approaching figures spat out blood one after another. Their bodies were on the verge of collapse. Shaken by the true dragon's roar, their divine consciousness was in chaos. Among them, the spiritual souls of those with weaker cultivations were torn apart. Just at this moment, a sword radiance came from the opposite direction, shuttling through the injured masters of the Lin people. Wherever the sword radiance passed, there was a continuous sound of cracking. Many bodies fell to the ground and turned into corpses. So powerful. The cultivators from all the realms who were watching the battle were shocked. The silver-haired man's cultivation was not high, but the divine technique he used was too overbearing. Once the true dragon's roar was used, opponents of the same level or even higher level could not withstand it. Their spiritual souls were either affected or directly torn apart. Then they were killed by the sword. It was seamless. Lin Rue. Lin Xian saw this scene and gritted his teeth. Then, Lin Rue of the Heavenly Wheel realm of the Lin clan stood out. The Heavenly Wheel circled around him. He looked down at Qin Hao from above and said, "Let me experience the supreme divine technique of the True Dragon Sword realm, True Dragon's Roar." Qin Hao looked up at him and showed some disdain. He shouted to Lin Xian, "If you are a man, don't hide in the back and let your subordinates die for you. Send Lin Rue. Would he be able to fight with Qin Hao? The ending will be the same." Chapter 2002. Bodies fell one after another. Lin people's attacks suddenly stopped, and fear appeared on their faces. In the void, the dragon's roar lingered. Qin Hao's roar and sword had killed more than half of the Lin people. Those below 7th level Nirvana couldn't resist at all. True Dragon Sword Realm Dragon Clan's supreme godly skill was displayed in Kunlun for the first time, and its power shocked all the strong cultivators. At this moment, Lin Rue stood in midair, looking down at Qin Hao with a dignified gaze. Lin Xian naturally didn't dare to accept Lin Rui's instigation. Even though Lin Rui's nirvana cultivation was 2 levels higher than Qin Hao's, Lin Xian still stood firmly at the back. Lin Rui knew very well that Li Chuji had a rare divine sword with unparalleled power. Now that he had obtained the supreme, godly skill, True Dragon Roar, he seemed to be at 3rd level nirvana. But in reality, he could severely injure or even kill 7th level nirvana, and even 8th level nirvana would find it difficult to take him down. That was why Lin Xian ordered Lin Rui to fight. Only with Tianluan of the Divine Path could he be sure of victory and kill Li Chuji. It seems that this generation of Lin people in Kunlun is just so cowardly. Qin Hao sneered. It wasn't that he was arrogant and domineering, but that he didn't dare to fight. Lin Rui's face darkened when he heard this. But the truth was that Lin Xian was definitely not Li Chuji's match. At this moment, Qin Hao stood in the middle of Wuk and the others. Corpses were lying on the ground outside. He held the formation with one sword, and nearly 100 Lin people didn't dare to come forward. He was unparalleled. "Everyone else, back off," Lin Rui shouted. Li Chuji's body was glowing with Buddhist light, as if he had a golden body. His supreme, godly skill, True Dragon Roar, contained the power of the Great Path. It was invisible and pervasive, and it could shatter one's divine soul. This space turned into rhythmic waves at any time, killing anyone who came close. If Li Chuji didn't die, his companions would be fine. No matter how many people came, it was useless. Lin Rui made his move. The radiance of the sky wheel erupted as he slammed his palm down. A gigantic palm imprint appeared in the air, terrifying to the extreme. It directly slammed down towards Qin Hao's head, wanting to crush him into dust. Shinto versus Nirvana. Lin Rui felt deeply ashamed in his heart. Even if he won, it would be an unfair victory. Unfortunately, he did not know that Qin Hao was also a heavenly wheel expert who had forged a perfect heavenly wheel that was comparable to a divine king. Whoosh! Qin Hao also made a move. He pointed his finger upward, and the great void sword turned into a beam of light. With a loud bang, the sword light pierced through the sky and made a hole in the center of the palm print. Then it disappeared. So strong, many people's hearts trembled. A Nirvana realm cultivator could still break through the opponent's laws. Was this silver-haired youth a true Nirvana realm cultivator? Lin Rui shouted coldly and pressed out both palms at the same time. Raging flames instantly ignited around his body. The Kunlun continent was established in the world of alchemy. The abilities of the 3 aristocratic families were all related to alchemy. Lin Rui had the heavenly fire of the divine path. Suddenly, with Lin Rui as the center, the fire became more and more intense. It actually turned into a sun, radiating terrifying flames that shot down towards the lower sky. "Master, be careful. This is the divine sun fire of the Lin clan. Its power is endless." Chuning reminded. "Let me borrow the divine Chu cauldron." Qin Hao slowly raised his hand. He didn't want to discuss this with Chuning. The cauldron that stood tall on the ground rose into the air with his will. It blossomed with incomparably gorgeous divine light. Suddenly, a divine aura surged out, completely protecting everyone below. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A violent collision sounded. The divine sun rays that filled the sky radiated down and bombarded the divine Chu cauldron. This divine item that belonged to the Chu clan leader actually exploded with power that was close to its owners in the hands of Qin Hao. It successfully blocked Lin Rui's attack. Chu Ning's eyes widened. He can actually control the divine Chu cauldron. Chizwa was shocked and couldn't sit still. "This kid is too demonic," the elder of the Qi clan said. The divine Chu cauldron wasn't something that an ordinary Tianluan could control, let alone a lower Nirvana saint. "Demonic, sky-suppressing pillar," Lin Rui roared. As a dignified divine path elite warrior, he couldn't even take down a Nirvana saint with his second bloodline ability. This wasn't the first time. If Lin Rui was careless in the battle outside the divine workshop, then now Li Chuji was truly facing him head-on. Lin Rui had no face left. Boom! The void shook violently. One after another, huge stone pillars appeared, surrounded by terrifying divine sun fire. They covered this part of the world and suppressed all directions. These stone pillars sealed the space. As Lin Rui's divine power flowed, the pressure that filled the air became more and more terrifying. When it fell, everyone felt as if the sky was collapsing, wanting to bury everything. As expected of a divine-level warrior of the Kunlun continent, Lin Rui was not affected by the heavenly path. At this moment, Lin Rui was obviously using his trump card. He was angered by Qin Hao's resistance. Good disciple, can your father's cauldron withstand the great path fire? Qin Hao looked up at the sky-suppressing pillar. Lin Rui's true strength couldn't be underestimated. He couldn't help but feel a little solemn. Of course, Chu Ning said. The Chu clan was proficient in alchemy. Although her father, Chu Shun, couldn't be compared to the supreme holiness, his divine path life artifact wasn't comparable to ordinary divine artifacts. It had been refined by Chu Shan's Tao fire for many years. How could it not be able to withstand other types of fire? That's good. Qin Hao smiled. He was also afraid of damaging other people's treasures. At this moment, the clothes on his body fluttered. Dense light particles permeated through his clothes and wrapped around the divine Chu cauldron like sparks. Qin Hao's Qianluan revolved. The red lotus divine power flowed quietly to every part of his body, filling his flesh and will. Go! He pointed his finger upwards. In an instant, the divine Chu cauldron burned fiercely. It was as red as blood. The red lotus divine fire attached to the cauldron, causing Chu Ning's father's divine artifact to also burn red. It was like a heaven-swallowing furnace. At this moment, a demonic aura began to permeate the void. The aura became more and more oppressive. It was so oppressive that it made it difficult for people to breathe. Many Tianluan experts who were watching the battle from afar had strange movements in their Tianluan bodies. They felt as if they were being burned by fire and were invaded by an irresistible will of fire. Qin Hao flicked his sleeve and whipped the divine Chu cauldron. Dong! With a loud sound, the divine cauldron soared into the sky. It was like a heaven-swallowing furnace, but also like a huge meteor. It charged directly towards Lin Rui. Bang! 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 The sky-suppressing pillar bombarded down and shattered on the divine Chu cauldron. When the two divine fires intertwined, they were almost instantly devoured by the red lotus divine fire. When the incomplete, small Tianluan faced the perfect Tianluan, there was no suspense. As the divine Chu cauldron went against the momentum, Lin Rui's active attack seemed to be reduced to a passive defense. Seeing the sky-suppressing pillar shatter, his face became more and more ugly. Only when the lava pillars shattered did Lin Rui realize the danger. Get down! Lin Rui roared as his eyes turned red. With a powerful punch, countless particles slammed into the divine Chu cauldron. The giant cauldron stagnated in the air and shook slightly. Then, it once again broke through the air, and with a loud bang, it heavily slammed into Lin Rui's chest under his pale face. Poof! A mouthful of blood sprayed out. Everyone saw Lin Rui's body was like a kite with a broken string. He was knocked upside down. The particles all over his body collapsed. Faintly, cracks appeared on the Tianluan flowing on his body. So strong. Isn't this too outrageous? Many people were dumbfounded. Divine path against Nirvana. Not only did Lin Rui fail to take down Nirvana, he was injured by Nirvana. It was unbelievable. Lin Rui! Lin Xian shouted. Seeing Lin Rui being knocked away by the divine Chu cauldron, even his voice was trembling. This is definitely not Nirvana-level Tao. It's not Nirvana at all. Who are you? Lin Rui stabilized his body and covered his chest with one hand. His clothes became tattered, and a fault appeared in the Tianluan light surrounding his divine body. Qin Hao's attack hurt Lin Rui's foundation and made him finally wake up. The opponent he faced was definitely not a Nirvana realm martial artist, because he was too strong. Haha, so what if I am, and so what if I am not? Qin Hao stood on the ground with his hands behind his back. Although Lin Rui was high in the sky, he gave people the feeling that he was looking up at Li Chuji. Young Master Xian, forgive Lin Rui for being incompetent. I can't take him down alone. Lin Rui said with a face full of shame. After fighting twice, he recognized his opponent's realm when his Tianluan was injured. He must be a Tianluan expert. Unfortunately, Lin Rui couldn't see through Qin Hao's Tianluan grade. Since it wasn't suppressed by Kunlun's heavenly Tao, it should be at least a great Tianluan. Lin Rui knew that it would be difficult for him to win against such an opponent who had 2 divine artifacts and the Dragon Clan's supreme divine skill. At this moment, Lin Xian clenched his fist tighter and tighter. It was originally a very easy task, but when they really fought, he found that his opponent was very troublesome. He couldn't take him down, and his mood instantly fell. Supreme God Gui, too, was fighting Illusion God. It should have been a battle where he had the advantage, but Lin Xian saw that Gui, too, didn't have the absolute advantage. At least, the winner couldn't be determined in a short time. Damn it, really damn it. Lin Xian didn't expect it to be like this. He looked at Qi Zhua and shouted, Lin Rui can't take him down alone. Brother Zhua, can you lend me a Tianluan? The only thing they could do now was to pull the Qi clan into the battle and fight 2 against 1. Qi Zhua's expression became serious. He nodded and said, Okay, Qi Meng, you and Lin Rui from the Lin clan will work together to take him down. The silver-haired young man's realm was unknown. After the battle with Lin Rui, it was now certain that he was a Tianluan realm cultivator, but he didn't know what level his Tianluan was. Qi Zhua didn't think too much about it. He thought that if Qin Hao had an extraordinary background, he might not have joined the Chu clan and become Chu Ning's master. In the end, he still had his eyes on the resources of the Chu clan in Kunlun. Then, Qi Zhua had no worries. The Qi clan was not weaker than the Chu clan. Ha ha, brother Lin Rui, I'm here to help you. Following Qi Zhua's order, a strong middle-aged man stepped out of the group. This man had fought with Chu Mao when they were crossing the sea. His cultivation was not inferior to Lin Rui's. I think you guys should not move. Suddenly, a beam of divine light came from the distance. It was extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, it stood in front of the Qi clan's formation. Then, many figures appeared from the light. They were mighty, and the formation was quite overbearing. The leader was wearing a golden yellow robe. His face was cold and handsome. He stood there with the demeanor of a king. At first glance, one could tell that his background was extraordinary. It's him. Chu Ning was worried that the Qi people would intervene. He looked up and saw that the noble figure standing in front of Qi Zhua was the young man in yellow who had occupied the first peak of the Seven Sword Mountain. Although the yellow-clothed youth was slightly inferior and had been defeated by a sword world genius who had appeared out of nowhere during the fight for the Sword Peak, the yellow-clothed youth's strength was obvious to all. He was definitely one of the top experts in Heaven Wheel. Why did he stop Qi Zhua? Qin Hao looked up. This was also the question in his heart. Why did the young man in yellow help them? You are. Qi Zhua saw that this person had an extraordinary temperament and couldn't help but ask cautiously. Great Path Sword World, True Dragon Divine Clan, Long Miao said indifferently. Long Miao said indifferently. His eyes stared straight at Qi Zhua as if he was looking down on him. Hiss! A series of gasps could be heard in this space. Dragon Clan, True Dragon Sword World. This young man in yellow was a descendant of the Dragon Clan. Chapter 2003. Wukong Retranslator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Chapter 203. Dragon King No One Can Stop Long Mion's arrival had changed the situation of the battle. Everyone stopped attacking, including Supreme, God Gui II, and Illusion Elder. Everyone's eyes were focused on Long Mion. So you're a friend from the Dragon Clan. I've heard so much about you. Qi Zhua cupped his hands and smiled humbly. The Dragon Clan was one of the great clans of the primitive desolation, and Long Miao was from the True Dragon Sword World. He had a relationship with Lord Dragon God. so he didn't dare to be rude. Prince Long Miao is the sixth son of the Divine Lord. Are you worthy of being friends with him? An elder standing beside Long Mo said in a dignified voice. His extremely arrogant voice reverberated through the area, causing the expressions of the experts from various worlds to change again. The sixth prince, the son of the true Dragon Sword World's Divine Lord, was far from an ordinary descendant of the Dragon Clan. Cheese's eyelids twitched. The other party didn't hide his disdain for the Kunlun Ki clan. When he first heard that Long Miao was a descendant of the Dragon Clan, he was already very respectful. He didn't expect Long Miao's status to be even higher than expected. The Kunlun Ki clan greets Prince Long Miao. Cheese bowed. Greetings, Prince Long Miao. The Ki clan, Lin clan, and expert from all the other worlds bowed. No wonder the descendant of the Divine Lord was so arrogant. Long Miao had the right to look down on them. May I ask, Prince Long Miao, why you won't allow us to capture Li Chuji? Chizwa asked. That's right. Even if Good Sir is Lord Dragon God's descendant, this is the Heaven's Ho God world, a place under the rule of God, Lord Tian Ho. The actions of the three great clans of Kunlun are not for the sixth prince of true Dragon Sword world to instruct, Lin Xian coldly said. Long Miao glanced at Lin Xian. How dare he speak to him in such a tone? However, the Kunlun continent was indeed one of the planes ruled by the divine Lord Tian Ho. I can't control the affairs of the Kunlun clans, but you want to capture someone from the Dragon Clan? Aren't you looking down on me? Long Miao said. How could the small clans of Kunlun touch someone from the Dragon Clan? Someone from the Dragon Clan? Chizwa and Lin Xian looked at Qin Hao. It turned out that Long Miao came here for Li Chu-san. Miao, Prince, is Miao, translation. Translation is Lin Xian's translation. Lin Xian. Miao. I don't really understand either. I have no relationship with the Dragon Clan. Is translation. Translation Miao translation. Miao translation Lin Miao. Translation is Miao translation or translation. Moreover, he didn't need Long Mian's power to protect himself. Miao translation Long Miao translation. Long Miao translation was Miao translation Ward Dragon Miaos. Long Mian glanced at Chizwa and Lin Xian with disdain and sneered in his heart. Why did these small clans in Kunlun capture Li Chuji? Wasn't it to get the Dragon Clan's divine skill? Long Mian naturally wouldn't allow Qin Hao to use the divine techniques of the dragon race. Even if he had to kill someone, he had to do it himself. Therefore, from now on, your life and death will be in the hands of our Dragon Clan. No one else is allowed to touch you. Long Mian pointed at Qin Hao as he spoke. Even if God Lord Tian Yong was here, he would still have to give face to the Dragon Clan, as this concerned the origin of their bloodline. In an instant, the expressions of Huan Zun, Xiao Han, Wuk, and the others changed drastically. Long Miao wasn't here to save the situation. His goal was the same as Chizwa and Lin Xian. Chizwa was troubled and glanced at Lin Xian. What Long Miao said was reasonable. Since the true dragon roar was obtained, it was indeed related to the Dragon Clan. Now that Long Miao wanted to take Li Chuji away, the Kunlun clan had no reason to stop him. Sixth Prince must be joking. I, Li Chuji, have the final say in my life and death. What does it have to do with your Dragon Clan? Qin Hao bluntly retorted. Anyone who cultivated the true dragon roar would have their life and death decided by the Dragon Clan. If God Lord Tian Yong was here, would Long Miao still dare to do so? Long Miao's eyes suddenly sharpened as he stared at Qin Hao. At this moment, an invisible dragon might press down on Qin Hao's body and seem to be sucking into his soul. Qin Hao immediately felt a pressure descend on his body. In his mind, an incomparably tyrannical divine dragon appeared, as if it was the incarnation of Long Miao, wanting him to kneel and submit. The Buddhist light on Qin Hao's body grew brighter and brighter. Dragon energy surged along the heavenly wheel, releasing a powerful dragon might that drove away the image of the divine dragon in his mind. He calmly stared at Long Ye, neither servile nor overbearing. Interesting. Long Ye put away the sharpness in his eyes and smiled. He could feel a clear dragon power from Qin Hao. It was not formed by martial arts, but the true power of a true dragon. No wonder this person had mastered the dragon clan's unique skill left by his uncle. He had the power of a true dragon. It could be said that he was related to the dragon clan. Prince Long Ye, this person is very arrogant and difficult to tame. Why don't you let the Lin clan kill him on behalf of your highness and show the power of the true dragon? Lin Xian said. He was also happy. Li Chuji dared to disobey Long Ye. He was asking for death. Qizhou also smiled. If Li Chuji left with Long Ye, they would not dare to stop him. Now, not only did he make a strong enemy, he even dared to challenge Long Ye. He was digging his own grave. Prince, the elder next to Long Ye wanted to say something, but Long Ye raised his hand to stop him. He looked down at Qin Hao and said, "All right, I will give the Kunlun clan a chance. If you can't take him down, I will do it myself." "Thank you, Prince Long Ye." Lin Xian was overjoyed. He looked at Qin Hao with murderous intent. He had to let Li Chuji die in the hands of the Lin clan. Only then would he be able to vent the hatred in his heart. However, fighting is one thing. It is fair and square. The Qi clan does not need to do anything. Long Ye's face was full of warning. Several Tianlun realm cultivators besieging a person with the true dragon roar divine skill. If this spread out, it would not be good for the dragon clan. This, young Master Xian, forgive the Qi clan for not being able to help. Qizhou heard and could not help but laugh. Humph, the Lin clan is enough to kill this person. Lin Rui, you all go. You must kill Li Chuji. Lin Xian ordered loudly. When Lin Rui heard this, he could only bite the bullet and attack. The divine sun fire erupted. It was as if he had turned into a sun hanging in the void. Both of his palms blasted out, causing the space to shake violently. Pillars of sky suppression fell down and blended with the divine sun fire. The sky was filled with burning pillars. They whistled as they pierced towards Qin Hao. The attack was even more violent than before. In the Lin people's team, several figures flew out, emitting the extreme Nirvana Dao will. They were all 7th and 8th level Nirvana realm cultivators. They also attacked Qin Hao. Lin Rui could not take down Li Chuji alone. Without the Qi clan's Tianlun realm cultivators, he could only rely on the Lin people's upper Nirvana realm cultivators to make up the numbers. At this moment, Qin Hao's body suddenly disappeared from his original position. In the void, an incomparably beautiful sword shadow arced through the air. After that, it split into 2, then 3, then 10,000 sword shadows. These sword shadows were like divine dragons that appeared one after another. It was incomparably spectacular, soaring above the 9 heavens. Tens of thousands of divine dragons let out earth-shaking dragon roars at the same time. Roar! An extremely terrifying sound wave swept out. The expressions of several Nirvana realm cultivators who came to assist changed drastically. They felt the incomparably turbulent dragon roar attacking them. Their bodies were engulfed in the sound wave. The sound was grand and ear-piercing, like the roar of a divine dragon. It was also like thousands of sharp divine swords ruthlessly piercing into their souls. "Be careful," Lin Rui shouted. He wanted to awaken several Lin people's upper Nirvana realm cultivators. Then, their bodies shattered one after another in the sound wave. Their bodies and souls were destroyed, and they were reduced to nothingness in an instant. The combination of the true dragon roar and the spatial sword technique erupted instantly. This was also Qin Hao's first attempt. Even the 8th level Nirvana realm cultivators who were close to God did not have the ability to retaliate and were directly annihilated. It was extremely powerful. Moreover, Qin Hao did not use the perfect Tianlun realm. He only used the true dragon roar to achieve this result. What if he used the Tianlun realm and infused it with divine power? He has indeed learned the true dragon roar. Longmia witnessed everything and nodded secretly. Not only that, but he also combined the sword will with our clan's supreme divine technique. He can be called a genius. The elder of the dragon clan said. Perhaps the effect of a low-level battle was not very clear. If it was a battle between Tianluan realm cultivators or even Divine King realm cultivators, this kind of attack power could be said to be extremely terrifying. It was enough to directly shatter the realm and make all living beings disappear. It would be a pity if this kind of talent died in the hands of the Kunlun aristocratic families. However, the elder of the Dragon Clan could see that among the many Tianluan realm cultivators present today, except for him and Prince Longmia, no one could defeat Li Chuji. The death of the Lin clan's Tianluan realm cultivator had arrived. Everyone back off. Don't come over. Lin Rue once again warned loudly. Li Chuji's dragon roar technique was overbearing and fierce, and his swordsmanship was outstanding. Combining the strengths of the two, the killing power released was far beyond imagination. Even if Tianluan realm cultivators were to face it, they would not be able to escape unscathed. At this moment, Lin Rue was a little regretful. He should not have allowed Lin Xian to make enemies everywhere. It was unwise to provoke such a strong cultivator. The funny thing was that Lin Rue still could not see the grade of the other party's Tianluan realm. Qin Hao's figure appeared again, stepping on the void. His movements seemed slow, but wherever his figure passed, the void flashed with sword light, making it difficult to distinguish his real body. As the sword will in the air became more and more vigorous, a dragon's power was faintly formed. Lin Rue's heart tightened. He realized that Li Chuji was going to use the true dragon roar again, and this time it was probably more violent than before. He had no chance of winning in confidence. Retreat. At this moment, it was not suitable to fight anymore. He could only retreat. Otherwise, not only him, but Lin Xian's life would also be in danger. Young Master Xian, retreat from the Kunlun Sea and return to the clan to ask the clan leader. Lin Rue made a prompt decision. His divine consciousness controlled the sky suppression pillar to fall, but he turned around and rushed toward Lin Xian's position, wanting to take him away from this place. This scene made the strong cultivators in the boundless space change their expressions. The dignified Kunlun continent's native supreme, Dao, cultivator was forced to this point by a Nirvana plane cultivator from the outside world. It seemed ridiculous, but it was really happening. It was simply absurd. Countless people's eyes fell on Qin Hao's body as he stepped into the void. His steps were ethereal and unpredictable. Behind him, thousands of sword shadows rolled up. The sword aura was like a dragon, and the momentum was monstrous. Was this really Nirvana plane? The Tianluan of the Supreme Dao was probably just this. Master is really a strange person. Chuning looked at the sky. She had thought that this battle would be extremely difficult, and perhaps she would not lose her life. After all, the Kunlun Sea would not sit by and watch her die in the hands of Lin Xian. If she died here, the Kunlun Sea would also have to bear the responsibility, and there would be no way to explain it to the Chu clan. But who would have thought that Qin Hao alone, and with one sword, would wipe out the Lin clan like the autumn wind sweeping up fallen leaves? In this battle, 80% of the clansmen that Lin Xian brought into the Kunlun Sea were killed. Even Lin Rue chose to avoid the battle and escape. Looking at the situation, it seemed that Master did not allow the other party to escape. Hee. If you're lucky enough, you will understand that he is not only strange, but also terrifying. At this time, Wuk said softly. Seeing Qin Hao killing in all directions, he was envious. If he could also cast the Tianluan, then the one who would wipe out the Lin clan today would definitely be him, and there would be no need for Qin Hao to do anything. Chapter 2004. The stone pillars in the sky were wrapped in flames, sealing off the void, preventing Qin Hao from moving forward. Lin Rue rushed toward Lin Xian. Divine light swept out and wrapped him up. He was ready to leave the Kunlun Sea gathering and return to the Lin people to ask the clan leader to come out. Qin Hao stared at the fleeing figure. He stepped on the water and wind and walked through the sky. As he stepped down, the void rumbled and trembled. The divine will of the great path suppressed the world. This step was like stepping on the heads of everyone, shaking the blood of the cultivators from all over the world. Qin Hao's figure was like a sword as he chased after Lin Rue. The stone pillars all over the sky were blown apart by the sword qi on his body. At such a terrifying speed, it would be impossible for Lin Rue to escape. Supreme God Gue too, Lin Rue shouted. Li Chuji's temperament was changing. His aura was growing stronger as his temperament changed. It was as if he had thrown away the shackles in his heart and returned to his essence. He grew to an extremely terrifying height. This made Lin Rue realize that Li Chuji was determined to kill Lin Xian. In the void, the corpse qi surged, setting off a strong, rotten smell. Tens of thousands of skeletons appeared in the corpse qi, constantly intertwining and changing. They condensed into a huge skull, which was terrifying to the extreme. Gue too had promised to protect Lin Xian in the gathering. At this time, the Lin clan was in trouble. Only he could resolve the crisis between Lin Xian and Lin Rue and buy time to escape. The huge skull stood in front of Qin Hao, like a ghost king from hell. The corpse qi filled the sky. It suddenly opened its mouth and spat out a turbulent blood spring. It roared and churned like a river of blood rushing out, drowning Qin Hao. Qin Hao stared at the huge waves of the river of blood. Shrill screams moved with the waves. Countless ghosts appeared, exuding all kinds of auras. This made him understand that the ghosts in the river of blood must be the cultivators from all over the world that Gue too had killed. He had stripped the spiritual souls of all the cultivators and refined them into his own laws, turning them into sharp weapons to kill. Boom! Qin Hao's aura erupted, and the light of the celestial wheel suddenly flashed out. It was incomparably dazzling. At this moment, it was as if a heavenly might descended from the void and poured into his body, causing his aura to become even more vast. It was as if he had transformed into the ruler of this world. When the heavenly wheel appeared, the cultivators from various realms felt as if they were suffocating. Long Miao's heart also violently contracted. However, no one could see the heavenly wheel clearly. In just a flash, it immediately hid back into Qin Hao's body. However, that was enough. Dong! An abundant sword will shot out from Qin Hao's position, piercing towards the gigantic skull. Everyone could only see a streak of crimson fiery light shuttling through the air. It was even redder than the river of blood, and its baleful aura was boundless. Then, the huge skull exploded. The blood river and countless ghosts were annihilated by the impact of the sword will. Spitting out a mouthful of blood, Gue Tu's face trembled as he looked at Qin Hao. His eyes were mixed with horror. He turned and left, not daring to stay for even half a breath. He directly escaped into the void. However, the abundant sword will did not disappear. It continued to pierce forward. The sharp shadow swept across the void, ignoring the distance of the way of heaven. It pierced through the divine light emitted by Lin Rue. No! An incomparably sorrowful roar shook the heavens and the earth. Lin Rue's protective divine light collapsed. His pupils dilated as he was pierced by the sword and dissipated between heaven and earth. Lin Xian, it's over. Seeing this, Qi's heart twitched violently. The two heavenly wheel cultivators of the Qi clan beside him also trembled slightly. Lin Rue of the Lin clan, a heavenly wheel cultivator of the divine path, perished here. Even if Gue too tried to block it, he cannot block it. This scene had an extremely strong impact on everyone, especially the native cultivators of the Kunlun continent. It was like a dream. It was not until they saw Lin Rue disappear that a wave of fear invaded their souls. At this time, the way Chu Ning looked at Qin Hao had also changed. There was a trace of fear in her shock. Other than standing arrogantly in front of me in the divine workshop, you have never faced me directly from the beginning to the end. Qin Hao's cold voice rang in Lin Xian's ears. Now, he had already arrived in front of him. His silver hair fluttered in the wind. He looked elegant, but it made Lin Xian shudder. His legs were shaking like a sieve. At this moment, Lin Xian's face was extremely pale. Just now, Lin Rui was alive in front of him, trying to take him away from the Kunlun Sea. In a breath, he died. How could this be? Lin Xian could not understand. The Great Lin clan had entered the Kunlun Sea with a mighty team, but they were all killed by a mere Nirvana Plane cultivator. Of course, Lin Xian naturally did not think that Qin Hao was still a Nirvana Plane cultivator. Even if he was a god, he should not be able to kill the heavenly wheel cultivators of the Lin clan with a snap of his fingers. After all, this was the Kunlun continent, and the heavenly wheel cultivators of the outside world were weaker. Sorrow, great sorrow, and irony. 3 gods, Qing Zun and Lin Rui, died. 2 died and 1 escaped. Gue Tu left him. Nearly 200 emperors were killed without a trace. Thinking back to the scene in the Divine Workshop, Lin Xian only felt ashamed. It's your honor to follow me. This sentence still rang in his ears, but did he have the qualifications to be followed by Qin Hao? You win, Lin Xian said sadly. Lin Xian said sadly. His eyes became sharp again as he stared at Qin Hao. But the Lin clan will not let this go. If you dare to touch me, I guarantee that no one around you will be able to leave the Heaven Fortress realm alive. Resentment, extreme resentment. Lin Xian was a direct descendant of the Lin clan. Above him were the clan leader and ancestor Lin Shan, and below him were tens of thousands of clansmen. No matter how strongly Chuji was, could he protect everyone? Cough, cough. It's really a unique battle of life and death. I've learned something new. Chizwa looked at Qin Hao and said, Your Excellency has hidden very well. But even if Your Excellency is peerless, if you really touch young Master Xian, you will not be able to leave the Kunlun Plain. Why don't we stop here and bury the hatchet? What do you think? Stop here and bury the hatchet? Qin Hao stared at Chizwa. Chizwa felt uncomfortable being stared at by Qin Hao. He looked away and fell on Lin Xian. What do you think, young Master Xian? If the Lin clan does not pursue this matter, I, Chizwa, am willing to be a peacemaker and vouch for young Master Xian. I believe that the Qi people are qualified. Fight? If Lin Xian dared to fight again, he would definitely die in the next second. He understood this in his heart. He nodded and said, Okay, let me go today. The Lin clan will let bygones be bygones. We will go our separate ways. We will go our separate ways? Qin Hao sneered. There was some disdain in his eyes. Now he wanted to make peace. Wasn't he very arrogant just now? But was it possible to make peace? Lin Xian was a proud person. This kind of person would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. Once Lin Xian left, he would definitely come back to bite you. Qin Hao had seen too many of them. Bang! Divine light bloomed and reflected in Lin Xian's eyes. His expression changed drastically, but he had no time to react. As Qin Hao rolled up his sleeve and whipped his body, the violent burning power invaded his body. Lin Xian seemed to have fallen into a raging fire. His meridians were all destroyed. The will of the divine fire directly destroyed his foundation. The injury of the laws could never be healed. A shrill scream rang out as Lin Xian plummeted from the sky, landing heavily on the ground. His face was filled with pain as his body convulsed. He raised his head to look at Qin Hao, who was standing above him. He had actually crippled him. Since the Qi clan has stepped forward to vouch for you, I will give you a chance to redeem yourself. Before we leave Kunlun, if the Lin clan comes again, I will not let you live. Qin Hao's voice sounded fiercely. The expressions of the cultivators from all over the world changed. How cruel. He crippled the descendant of the Lin clan in Kunlun just like that. Good, you're very good. Lin Xian gritted his teeth as he endured the pain of a knife piercing his heart. Then, his face became extremely dispirited, as if he had lost all will to live and was like a living dead. He had been crippled. Even if he didn't die, he would have no hope of inheriting his ancestral business when he returned to his clan. Especially since Li Chuji had destroyed his martial arts foundation, he would never be able to cultivate and could only be a cripple. Keep an eye on him, Qin Hao said. Tang strode forward and threw his palm to the ground. A rope flew out and tied Lin Xian up tightly. Qin Hao couldn't kill Lin Xian before he got the power of the divine path from Supreme Being Zihua. The Lin clan was also a part of the heavenly path in Kunlun and had become the ruler of the heavenly path. These conflicts didn't matter. He was willing to give the Lin people a chance to establish themselves. The battle finally came to an end. Looking at Lin Xian, who was tied up by Tang like a prisoner, the cultivators from all over the world couldn't help but sigh. It's a pity that the fat, old man escaped, Tang said angrily. Illusion Elder sighed softly. Under the suppression of the heavenly path in Kunlun, delaying Gue Tu was already the limit of his ability. There was no way he could kill Gue Tuesday. If it was in other realms, he might have a chance, but this was Kunlun. A country bumpkin is useless after all. At this moment, Long Miao, the sixth prince of the true dragon sword realm, slowly descended and pressed down on Qin Hao. The Lin clan of Kunlun was too useless. Even with the power of the heavenly path, they still lost this battle. Sixth prince, Senior Long Fan left behind the supreme art for the future generations to comprehend and inherit. If the dragon clan doesn't even have this much magnanimity, it's no wonder that Senior Long Fan abandoned the dragon name and surrendered to the Buddha of the southern heaven world of Buddhism. Qin Hao said, "How dare you?" The elder of the Void Dragon clan shouted. Long Fan was the pain of the true dragon sword realm. No matter what, Li Chuji shouldn't criticize him. I think that makes sense. Since Senior Long Fan left behind the supreme art, he naturally wanted to give it to the destined person. The true dragon roar has finally found a home after 10,000 years. Isn't it a beautiful story? A group of people descended from the void. Immediately, a powerful sword intent filled the world. A young man with an extraordinary aura stood beside Qin Hao and smiled at Long Miao. It was Lu Qiu, the son of the divine lord of Rikujanji. Uncle did leave the true dragon roar to the destined person, but this destined person should be the dragon clan. Long Miao glanced at Lu Qiu. What is this guy doing here? I also saw the battle just now. This brother has the power of the true dragon. How do you know that he's not a descendant of the other dragons? Lu Qiu chuckled and said, "The dragon race isn't all in the true dragon sword world. According to what I know, your lineage was actually..." Lu Qiu, shut your mouth. My sword intent was indeed slightly inferior to yours when we fought at the Seven Sword Mountain, but that doesn't mean that I, Long Miao, am really inferior to you. Long Miao's expression changed drastically when he heard the words 10,000 Saint Dragon Palace. I'm not afraid if you want to fight, but I don't want to fight with you. Lu Qiu smiled. The 10,000 Saint Dragon Palace was indeed the thorn in the heart of the true Dragon Divine clan. Then what do you want? Long Miao asked. He wanted to take back the Dragon God skill on Li Chuji. What did it have to do with Lu Qiu? Uncle Long Ao's name is well known in the Great Path Sword Realm. Even my father admires him. The Dragon Clan shouldn't be so narrow-minded that they can't tolerate other members of the Dragon Clan. How about this? You two compete with the true Dragon Roar. If he can withstand the power of your roar, it proves that the divine skill belongs to him. If he can't, Lu Qiu paused and looked at Qin Hao. Your divine soul may be destroyed. Chapter 2005. The true dragon's roar could shatter souls and annihilate the heavenly wheel. It was extremely overbearing. Long Miao and Lu Qiu were very clear about this. Qin Hao went into the mountain to experience it. Since he had already learned this art, he was naturally very clear about it. Competition? He wasn't afraid, even if he was facing the true dragon divine prince. However, he was curious about Lu Qiu. Why was he on his side? Lu Qiu's suggestions seemed dangerous, but it vaguely revealed his trust in Qin Hao, as if he was sure that he wouldn't lose. Okay. Qin Hao nodded. It's my honor to be taught by you, Prince Long Miao. Lu Qiu smiled and stepped aside, leaving the arena to the two sides. This battle was about life and death. If he won, he would admit that he had the Long Miao divine art. If he lost, Qin Hao would die at the hands of Long Miao. The scene was extremely quiet. Overlords from all worlds looked at the two, especially Long Miao. No one thought that Qin Hao could survive the true dragon divine prince's roar. After all, the true dragon's roar came from the dragon family. I hope you die after this roar. Lin Xian, who was tied up, stared at Qin Hao viciously. Wuk frowned and said, "Don't worry. If anything happens to him, you'll die first." This made Lin Xian shudder involuntarily. Are you ready? I've created a deity-grade Tianlun. The heavenly law of Kunlun can't suppress my Tianlun power. I won't give you a chance to humiliate the supreme art of the dragon family. Long Miao's eyes were cold. The true dragon's roar flowed in the blood of the dragon family. He had been influenced by the will of the dragon true lord since he was young. Did Li Chuji really think he could survive his roar? Sixth Prince, please teach me. Qin Hao replied. Boom! An extremely bright Luan light burst out from Long Miao's body. The surging divine power spread to all parts of his body. He looked almost flawless. It was difficult to find where his Lunli was missing. For someone like him, who had the chance to become a divine lord in the future, the only fatal weakness that wasn't covered by Tianlun was. At this moment, the pressure in the air was extremely strong. The dragon's might enveloped the entire area. Everyone could hear a deep and majestic dragon's roar, as if there were tens of thousands of divine dragons wandering in the air. Not only was Long Miao's Tianlun extremely dazzling, but if one looked closely, there was also a strange layer of energy around his body, as if a divine dragon was coiling around him. This was the unique power of the dragon clan, the true dragon force. What a terrifying divine might. Wuk's face was extremely solemn, and he felt uneasy. Long Miao was the strongest warrior he had ever seen, and he was even more terrifying than when he used that sword in the Seven Sword Mountain. Was this the true power of the celestial grade heavenly wheel? Thinking of this, Wuk silently glanced at Qin Hao. The explosive power of the celestial grade heavenly wheel was already so amazing. Then how terrifying would the perfect heavenly wheel be? No wonder he could kill ordinary heavenly wheel experts just by relying on his divine intent to support the divine artifact. If he were to unleash his full power, Qin Zun and Lin Rui's incomplete heavenly wheel experts could probably be destroyed with a flick of his finger. Wuk had never seen Qin Hao fully unleash the power of the divine path. At this moment, he finally understood the original realm that Zhang Wu had mentioned. Only the original realm could nurture a perfect heavenly wheel, which was a divine path stronger than Long Miao. Be careful, Long Miao said. The divine light of the heavenly wheel circulated, and it was so dazzling that people couldn't open their eyes. It was as if he had disappeared from the world. In his place, a divine dragon rushed out. It was like Long Miao himself, and it stood above the void. Its golden scales were extremely noble, and its huge body was extremely intimidating. Then, it raised its head and let out a dragon's roar. The astral wind raged between heaven and earth, and the terrifying sound waves of the divine path turned into turbulence and rushed toward Qin Hao, wanting to drown him. Qin Hao felt the dragon's might approaching him, and he was intimidated by Long Miao's aura. He felt like he couldn't move, and his will and blood were about to freeze. If it were an ordinary divine-level expert, he wouldn't be able to resist at all. This was the power of the celestial grade divine path. Unfortunately, Qin Hao was not an ordinary divine-level expert. Buzz, a pocket-sized cauldron like an incense burner, rotated and emerged. It became bigger and bigger, sweeping out a monstrous shadow that enveloped Qin Hao. Outsiders couldn't see clearly, and they only felt that he was covered by a large cauldron. Then, the large cauldron shook violently, and the surging light of particles rushed out from the cauldron shadow. An indescribable divine aura descended from this part of the world. It was vast and distant, and it gave people the feeling that they were witnessing the might of a true god. Gods were only relative. When they encountered an expert who was stronger than their own cultivation, they would feel powerless. It was the case for ordinary people, for emperors, and even for those who had stepped into the divine path. At this moment, The aura emitted by Qin Hao made the experts from all over the world feel this way. It was a heavy feeling of powerlessness, as if they were facing a god who was stepping on their heads. Roar! Then, a huge dragon soul soared into the sky. The dragon's body was burning with blazing flames, as red as blood. It stood in the void and confronted the golden divine dragon. It also let out a shocking dragon roar. However, this dragon roar carried a kind of compassion. The sky was filled with rolling Buddhist sounds, containing an extremely sacred power of Buddhism. It was completely different from the true dragon that Long Fan let out. It was less domineering and murderous, but more kind of compassion. It saw all lives as equal, and there was no distinction between nobility and inferiority. This was the power that Long Fan had comprehended when he entered Buddhism. He had improved the supreme divine technique of the Dragon Clan, and evolved the attack of the divine path from the true dragon roar. Sad dragon roar. Boom! It was an earth-shattering charge. Under the roar of the two divine dragons, heaven and earth seemed to be on the verge of collapse. The entire Kunlun Sea was surging with huge waves, and countless islands shook violently as if they were about to sink to the bottom of the sea. They were in imminent danger. Seeing this, the experts of the divine path from all over the world released their divine power to protect their juniors. If they were to be caught in such a terrifying sound wave, then even God would not be able to save them. The illusion elder also released his divine power to protect Xiaohan, Wuk, and the others. Even so, everyone's blood was churning, and blood seemed to be flowing out from the pores of their bodies. Everyone's face was flushed, and many of the weaker ones almost fainted from the shock. Finally, the raging wind between heaven and earth stopped, and the two divine dragons that stood in the void slowly dissipated. The blinding light at Long Fan's position receded, and his original body was slowly revealed. You are indeed the top genius of the true Dragon Sword realm. If not for the divine artifact, I would have died under the roar of his highness. Qin Hao put away the great void cauldron and smiled at Long Fan. This made everyone's eyes widen. He was actually unscathed? Long Fan's eyes narrowed, and his gaze fell on Qin Hao. He found that there were spots of Buddha's light, and his aura was exactly the same as the dragon's roar of sorrow. However, at this time, Long Fan's state of mind faintly changed, revealing sadness. He sighed and said to Qin Hao, "Why is the roar that you used different from my true dragon's roar?" He knew that Qin Hao had inherited his uncle's true teachings, but this kind of dragon's roar that contained Buddha's power was not something that the other Dragon Clan members could use. Senior Long Fan had an epiphany of Buddhism and turned the true dragon's roar into the sorrowful dragon's roar. I don't understand his feelings at that time, but perhaps he felt sad for all living things. Of course, that was why he went to the Southern Heaven Buddhist realm to become a disciple of the Gautama Buddha. Qin Hao said. Long Fan fell into deep thought and could not recover for a long time. Among the 7 brothers, Long Fan had doted on him the most since he was young. To him, his uncle was more like a father than a father. That year, when he learned that Long Fan had abandoned the Dragon Clan and went to the Southern Heaven Buddhist realm, he was so sad that he didn't go out for a few years. But today, seeing Qin Hao obtain the Dragon Wall divine art, he naturally felt uncomfortable. First, he was afraid that Qin Hao would leak the Dragon Clan's divine art, and second, he was jealous. In the previous Kunlun Grand Meetings, Long Miao's brothers had all come to the stone wall to study his uncle's divine will, but none of them had succeeded, including him. In fact, he had already entered the stone wall before Qin Hao did. Maybe this is fate, Long Miao said sadly. He looked at Qin Hao and said, "The true dragon wall has been destroyed, and the divine will of my uncle's dragon soul has been refined by you. I hope that you won't disgrace his divine art in the future. Otherwise, the Dragon Clan will chase you to the end of the world." In other words, he had admitted that Qin Hao was qualified to inherit Long Fan's divine art. "I will remember." Qin Hao nodded. He could understand the Dragon Clan's worries. After all, it was the divine art of the Dragon Clan. If it was leaked, the consequences would be severe. Ha ha ha. Isn't it good that everyone is happy? Lu Qiulong smiled and walked over. He looked at Qin Hao and nodded, as if he was admiring a rare piece of art. By the way, what's your relationship with him? Why you stand up for him again and again? Long Miao looked at Lu Qiu. He had already heard about what happened at the Seven Sword Mountain. Lu Qiu had given the Sword Emperor's one sword 7 kills to Li Chuji. Lu Qiu regarded the Sword Dao as his life. Long Miao had to admit that Lu Qiu's attainment in the Sword Dao was the strongest among the 3 sword realms. After all, the Dragon Clan was best at the body arts. But Lu Qiu would give up the Sword Emperor's 7 sword spirits and give it to someone else. Long Miao couldn't understand. Ahem. Lu Qiu blushed at Long Miao's question and couldn't say anything. Your Highnesses, I don't know how the Kunlun Sea has offended you. If we have neglected you, the sect master ordered Su Qian to apologize. Suddenly, a ray of light came from the sky. Many fairies of the Kunlun Sea descended from the sky. The leader was the chief disciple of the Kunlun Sea, Fairy Su, a divine art overlord. Greetings, Fairy Su. The overlords of various realms bowed. Su Qian smiled and said, There's no need to be so polite. A banquet has been prepared to welcome the overlords of various realms to the Kunlun Sea. Please go to the banquet. After saying that, Su Qian looked at Lu Qiu and Long Miao with a smile. The dragon roar just now had even alarmed the sect master. If it were to happen a few more times, the Kunlun Sea would probably be shaken up. Let's go to the banquet. Long Miao smiled faintly at Fairy Su. Then, he led the true Dragon Divine clan into the sky. Lu Qiu looked at Qin Hao meaningfully and nodded slightly. Then, she led her people and went with Long Miao. Seeing this, the overlords of various realms also set off to participate in the banquet. After all, they had come this time for this moment. Seven Sword Mountain and True Dragon Wall. You have destroyed 2 great miracles of the Kunlun Sea. Mr. Li, you are very capable. Su Qian then looked at Qin Hao and smiled. Obviously, she didn't really mean to blame him. I am ashamed. Qin Hao smiled apologetically. He didn't do it on purpose. The sword spirit that maintained the Sword Mountain and Long Fan's dragon Wall had disappeared. The Sword Mountain and Mountain Wall were destroyed by him. Let's go. My junior sister Qin Xiao has been waiting for you for a long time. Su Qian said. After she finished speaking, she led all the disciples into the sky and headed toward the main peak in a mighty manner. What is your relationship with Qin Xiao? What grabbed Qin Hao's arm and interrogated him? You should be related to her. Qin Hao shook off luck. She was born with the sword spirit lotus. According to people, Lotus Fairy's life spirit was also a white lotus. Something was fishy. In the noise, everyone followed Fairy Su. Further ahead was the tomb of the Supreme Venerable. Before paying respects to the Supreme Venerable, they naturally had to attend a banquet. This was also the way Kunlun Sea treated their guests. If they didn't give some benefits, why would they come to attend the banquet once in 1,000 years and pay respects to the founding god of the Kunlun Sea? It was said that many elixirs would be given at the banquet. The Lord of the Kunlun Sea would also appear to meet the overlords of various realms. Chapter 2006. The main peak of Kunlun was a beautiful fairy island, like a painting. A banquet had been set up on the dojo, waiting for cultivators from all over the world to come. In the void, figures flashed across and landed on the dojo one after another, looking for a suitable seat according to their cultivation level. Everything was in order. The Kunlun Sea dojo was vast and spacious. As far as the eye could see, as the elites from various realms took their seats one after another, there were fewer and fewer empty seats. Although the number of people who made it through the no-fly zone was less than 1 in 10, there were still quite a number of people who made it here in the end. Basically, there were all Supreme Dao elites in the group, and there were almost 1,000 people in total. The venue is simple. Please forgive us. Everyone, don't be reserved. Feel free to enjoy the delicacies. Fairy Su said with a smile, looking dignified and elegant. She led Lu Qiu and Long Miao to the highest seats. After all, the two princes were of high status. Lucio and Long Miao kept talking along the way. No one knew what they were talking about privately. Long Miao often looked back at Qin Hao with a strange and surprised expression. Trash Lin Xian was defeated by Li Chuji. Looks like I have to do it myself. Higashiwa followed the Rikujinji cultivators and sat below Lucio. He kept his head down and his face was gloomy. Things were worse than he thought. Lin Xian was defeated. The hundreds of cultivators who came with him were annihilated, and Tianlun was killed. Not only that, Long Miao, the true Dragon Divine's son, also failed to take down Li Chuji. Dong Wang could feel that Li Chu-san was very powerful, and Lucio seemed to have taken the wrong medicine to protect this person. Dong Wang could feel it. At this time, he looked up at Lin Xian. The proud descendant of the Lin family was no longer proud and arrogant. He was dispirited and had no fighting spirit. Higashiwa suddenly relaxed and thought of a plan. Lin Xian was destroyed, and the Lin family would not let it go. He could take advantage of this opportunity. Qin Hao and Wuk came to the dojo. Naturally, they did not know what Lucio and Long Miao were talking about in private, nor did they know Higashiwa's plan. They were just about to find a place to sit. At this time, a figure stepped forward. Before she arrived, they could smell a faint lotus fragrance. Fairy Lotus. Qin Hao cupped his hands and smiled. Divine Lord Li, you hid your strength well. Even Xiaohe was wrong. Sitting at the end of the dojo would be rude to the Kunlun Sea. Please come with me. Xiaohe said softly. She silently glanced at Wu Kei and then walked towards the Dao Rites seating area. Let's go, Qin Hao said. He and the others followed Qin Xiaohe to the upper seats. They were only second to Lucio and Long Mian. For a time, he attracted the attention of many cultivators. However, when they saw Qin Hao's appearance clearly, all of them withdrew their gazes. In the Seven Sword Mountain and the real Dragon Wall, Qin Hao had fought twice. He fought with Lucio for the Sword Spirit, defeated the Lin clan, killed Tianlun, and was unscathed after withstanding Long Miao's roar. Such a warring states period was enough to earn the respect of powerhouses from all over the world. It was not impossible for him to sit on the top and look down on the heroes. No matter where you are, strength is always the prerequisite for respect. Wuk said softly. Huanzu nodded. Qin Hao smiled and poured himself a cup. He slowly took a sip and said, Good wine. This is a rare, immortal liquid. It's very difficult to come across it. If you don't make a move, I'm going to finish it all by myself. Divine Master Li is also a person who knows a lot about alchemy and medicine. You have impressed me again. Next to him, Xianzi's beautiful eyes showed a touch of surprise. The celestial wine of Kunlun Sea was extremely complicated. Many precious herbs were added, but they were all covered with spices. Ordinary people couldn't taste it. Who would have thought that Li Chuji could see the truth with just one sip? Amazing. Master, let me pour the wine for you. Chu Ning was very diligent at Qin Hao's side. At first, she thought that this half-baked master was a Nirvana realm cultivator, but now she didn't dare to have such absurd thoughts. Moreover, if it weren't for her master, she would have fallen into the Kunlun Sea and missed this feast. Once upon a time, I learned a little about alchemy from an alchemy master. I only know a little, Qin Hao said to Qin Xiaohe, looking very humble. A little? It's too fake. Qin Xiaohe curled her lips. Just a little, but he could see through the medicinal wine of Kunlun Sea. He was really good. Divine Master Li is proficient in swordsmanship, the great path of fire, and the great path of space. You also have the power of the real dragon. Now you also know alchemy. I'm very curious about where you come from, and whether you are really a disciple of the martial god. Fairy Su looked over in his direction. I also want to know the answer, especially the grade of your celestial wheel, Long Miao said seriously. An ordinary celestial wheel couldn't withstand the power of his roar. It would be difficult to resist it even with the help of a divine artifact. I came from the Great Path Sword Realm. I was originally a commoner and worked in the mountains. I was lucky to have some opportunities and learn from several masters. As for the martial god, I'm sorry, but I can't tell you. Qin Hao replied. He didn't admit that he was a disciple of the martial god, but he didn't deny it either. After hearing this, Lucio smiled and didn't say anything. He could take out the original Realm Divine Stone and was extremely talented. Judging from all the signs, Li Chuji was most likely a disciple secretly trained by her master. After all, when she knelt to her master, the martial god told her that he had already accepted other disciples and wouldn't accept any more. Lucio's expression kept changing. She nodded secretly, then suddenly laughed and said, "So you are from the true Dragon Sword realm. You must be a descendant of some hidden clan. Since that's the case, you should come to the true Dragon Sword Palace more often. Our sword realm has a new talent like you. If father knows, he'll be pleased." Long Miao's words made Lucio's heart tremble. She almost stood up from her seat and said, "How do you know that Chu-san came for the true Dragon Sword realm? Maybe it's me, Rikujinji? It's the true Dragon Sword realm. Didn't you feel his dragon power?" Long Miao lay on the chair and said in an unquestionable tone. Lucio remembered the martial god's advice. She hesitated and finally gave up arguing. "Since you came from the sword realm, I don't care if you are a descendant of a hidden clan or a disciple of the martial god. You must die." Higashiwa thought to herself. Her eyes burned with terrifying madness. "When will the sect master arrive?" Qin Hao changed the topic. "Master will be here soon," Qin Xiao said. Yi Fuqian nodded. Kunlun clan master Hai had inherited the position of sect master from Zihua. If it weren't for the fact that he couldn't control the heavenly law, his status would be comparable to that of a reincarnation of a supreme venerable. At this moment, hearty laughter came from one direction of the training hall. Everyone looked over and saw a group of people appear. All of them had extraordinary temperaments and were filled with nirvana aura. The two people in the lead exuded extremely powerful might of the divine path. Master Hai Lu of Kunlun. Could that be Divine Lord Taichu? Many people discussed. At this moment, Chu Ning's pupils contracted slightly. She looked at a middle-aged cultivator walking beside Master Hai Lu and exclaimed, "Who is Divine Lord Taichu?" Qin Hao asked. Being able to walk side by side with Master Hai Lu, who was proficient in Puppet Divine Path, showed his status. He was an extraordinary cultivator in the early years of our Kunlun continent. After the death of the Supreme Venerable, Divine Lord Taichu succeeded Master Hai Lu and the Lord of the Divine Workshop and made a name for himself. Hundreds of years ago, he suddenly disappeared. Everyone said that he went to other planes. He actually joined the Kunlun Sea. It seems that those rumors were false. Chuning looked very surprised. Every divine path cultivator in the Kunlun continent was very eye-catching. After all, they were the top cultivators. Moreover, Divine Lord Taichu's strength was relatively high. At least, he was not inferior to Guei Tuesday. Such a figure naturally attracted the attention of the three major clans. But now, Divine Lord Taichu had obviously joined the Kunlun Sea. How could Chuning not be surprised? Qin Hao was not too surprised. After all, he was not from the Kunlun continent. The intrigue here had nothing to do with him. However, Divine Lord Taichu joining the Kunlun Sea showed some things. For example, the Kunlun Sea had the intention to rise again. Otherwise, why would they hold a grand banquet once in 1,000 years to select cultivators through the strict no-fly conditions? Those nirvanas who followed Master Hai Lu and Divine Lord Taichu were not ordinary nirvanas. It was obvious that the Kunlun Sea was strengthening itself and silently absorbing many talents. And in this grand banquet, there would be many people joining. In fact, Qin Hao's guess was right. Looking at those nirvanas, many of their auras had reached the peak of the precepts and were very close to the divine path. But it was unknown if any of them could cross the last hurdle and step into the divine gate. Kunlun Sea had gathered so many top nirvanas. They obviously had a purpose. "Which clan are you from?" Divine Lord Taichu faintly heard the conversation between Chu Ning and Qin Hao. He could not help but look over. "Senior Taichu, I am Chu Ning, a descendant of Kunlun's Chu clan." Chu Ning said, "Oh, a descendant of the Chu clan. No wonder you know me. You are quite capable to be able to pass through the no-fly zone." Divine Lord Taichu praised. He did not see any other heavenly wheel experts from the Chu clan present. At his level, he basically knew all the divine realm experts in Kunlun. Fortunately, Master protected me. That's why I could come here. Chu Ning said respectfully. Master, Divine Lord Taichu noticed Qin Hao at this moment. Seeing Chu Ning obediently pouring wine for this person, he wondered if this person was a transcendent. Immediately after, a powerful strand of divine sense shot out and landed on Qin Hao's position. It did not have any hostility, it just wanted to spy on him. Unfortunately, Divine Lord Taichu shook his head. Humph, that brat has the evil energy of ghosts and injured Zihua's cauldron spirit. Master Lu heavily snorted. He still remembered the grudge. Divine Lord Taichu was helpless. He did not want to interfere in this matter. Everything in the Kunlun Sea would be decided by the sect lord. Following that, Divine Lord Taichu and Master Lu sat at Lu Qiu and Long Yao's table. They greeted each other, and the atmosphere was harmonious. At this moment, a commotion broke out. On the training field, all the disciples of the Kunlun Sea bowed towards a certain direction and greeted in unison, Sect Lord. Qin Hao looked over and saw a scholarly man with an otherworldly temperament slowly walking into the field. He was extremely handsome, and his looks were off the charts. Even a famous Changhua Lo in the southern region could not compare to this person. At first glance, he was breathtaking. At the same time, he gave off an unattainable and holy aura. If a woman saw him, she would definitely feel ashamed and inferior. Kunlun Sea Sect Lord is so handsome. Father didn't lie, Chu Ning said happily. Chu Ning said happily. Her eyes were full of hearts. This was the first time she had seen the master of the Kunlun Sea. She had heard from her two brothers that the master of the Kunlun Sea was a rare handsome man. It was true. Senior Sect Lord is much better looking than you. Wuk said to Qin Hao, ignoring Xiao Han's feelings. You speak as if you are stronger than me. Qin Hao rolled his eyes at Wuk. His sect lord was indeed extraordinarily handsome. Moreover, the aura he gave off was very comfortable. There was no sense of arrogance. Greetings, sect lord. On the training field, the experts from various realms stood up and bowed. The sect lord of the Kunlun Sea had a status equal to exalted Zihua. Unfortunately, his strength was not at the level of an exalted. Otherwise, he was definitely the second strongest person in the divine world. Even if the divine lords of various realms were present, they would have to treat such an expert as equals. Chapter 2007. Don't be so courteous. Kunlun's grand event is held once in 1,000 years, and it's my honor to welcome all of you. Before the ancestral worship, I prepared some wine. I hope you don't mind. Zine smiled gently. Clan Lord, you're too polite. A heavenly will cultivator thanked him on behalf of everyone. It was an honor for the Lord of the Kunlun Sea to host a banquet for them. Everyone, please take a seat. Zine Clan Lord sat down, and the others followed. He looked at the crowd and said, according to the rules of the Kunlun Sea, anyone who can make it here will be given a divine path elixir. You must have been waiting for a long time. With a smile on his face, he waved his hand. Then, a group of beautiful figures walked forward. Nearly 100 fairies of the Kunlun Sea walked to the banquet and stopped at each table. Each of them held a bottle in their hands, which contained extremely precious Great Path elixirs. Here are 10 high-grade divine elixirs, 100 low-grade divine elixirs, and countless emperor elixirs. According to your cultivation and the attributes of your will, they have already been prepared. Zine waved his hand. The beautiful figures bowed slightly, placed the bottles on each table, and left with a smile. Many people opened the bottles respectfully and found that there were just enough elixirs for everyone at the table. These elixirs were different from the ones given by the underworld guards controlled by Master Lu. They were made by the Kunlun Sea. Moreover, not everyone could meet the underworld guards. Most of the people present had never met them. Thank you, Clan Lord. Everyone was overjoyed and kept the elixirs in their arms. They could feel that the elixirs contained extremely strong medicinal power that was helpful for cultivation. However, there were still 10 fairies who didn't leave. They stayed in the banquet hall, and the elixirs in their hands were all high-grade heavenly wheel elixirs, as if they had specially prepared them for some special people. At this time, Zine glanced at the banquet hall and said, "Everyone, the remaining 10 divine elixirs are not ordinary. Although they are only high-grade, they are made with rare divine materials. Su Qian, Xiao He, please introduce them to everyone." Yes. Su Qian and Lotus Fairy nodded. 9 Transformation Heavenly Fire Elixir. It uses the fire spirit of the Kunlun Sea as the main material and has been smelted for 81 years. After refinement, it can improve the divine flame, divine body, and improve the control over the divine fire. The Su Qian pointed to a flaming bottle. The 9 Transformation Heavenly Wheel Elixir. For a moment, Heavenly Wheel Elixir, the Heavenly Wheel Elixir. The Heavenly Spiritual Elixir, the Dark Void Pill, is helpful for meditation. It's extremely useful for cultivators of the spiritual path. It can increase the strength of spiritual perception. Lotus Fairy pointed to another bottle. The Divine Elixirs, Elixir, Elixir. And alls. You. I. T. You. Your of you alt. Your. S.I. Tzine pointed out 10 names. All the names he pointed out had outstanding performances in the Kunlun Sea. Obviously, these 10 elixirs were specially prepared for them. "I want the elixir of emptiness," Qin Hao blurted out. His voice echoed in the training hall. Everyone was stunned. "Are you sure?" Zine looked at Qin Hao. He thought he would choose the 9 Transformation Heavenly Fire Elixir. He had heard from his disciple that Li Chuji had the divine power of fire. "Yes, I'll take it," Qin Hao repeated. He looked at Xiaohan. Xiaohan lowered her head shyly. He had picked this elixir for her. "Okay, give the elixir of emptiness to divine lordly," Zine said. A fairy Lotus Fairy stepped forward and handed over the elixir. "Thank you, Sectmaster." Qin Hao bowed slightly and transferred the elixir to Xiaohan. Xiaohan carefully put it away. Seeing this scene, the experts at the banquet were stunned again, revealing a surprised expression. That was the elixir of emptiness specially prepared by the Kunlun Sea. How could he give it away so easily? Elixirs had always been very precious. From a moment they stepped into the martial path, it was closely related to the life of a cultivator. Countless people took risks for a suitable elixir. It was especially difficult for cultivators to improve even a little bit when they reached the divine level. This was because the heavenly wheel was incomplete and their own conditions limited the space for cultivation. And this elixir of emptiness could make up for the incomplete heavenly wheel. It could be said to be a priceless treasure. Moreover, looking at the expressions of the elders who were full of energy, they could not wait to swallow it. It was obvious how precious it was. Li Chuji was quite straightforward. He gave it away directly. Lucio and Long Mion's pupils shrank slightly. Seeing Xiao Han's expression and the love on Qin Hao's face, they understood their relationship. However, the woman's cultivation was too low. She was in the realm of true self. She was too far away from the divine path. Although taking the elixir of emptiness would bring great benefits, it was far less valuable than taking it by a divine-level cultivator. Qin Hao was so willing to give it away? Or did he not care at all? At this moment, Long Mion fell into deep thought again. As noble as he was, he only had the celestial wheel, which was still incomplete. What kind of heavenly wheel was Li Chuji's? Did he not need an elixir to make up for it? Interesting, Zine thought to himself. He heard from Su Qian and Qin Xiaoa that Qin Hao's performance was monstrous. He cracked the 7-sword mountain, comprehended the real dragon's roar, and even the flower emperor moved for him. This heavenly wheel should be very unusual. If it was as he guessed, then it was normal that he did not want an elixir. Forget your friends when you see a girl. There's a sword elixir over there. Wuk muttered. He felt an extremely strong sword will from a bottle. Why didn't he ask for the sword elixir for him? You should be content. Qin Hao glared at Wuk. This guy was insatiably greedy. The Sword Emperor's 1 sword 7 kills was so powerful that the sword would take a long time to refine. Was he still not satisfied? Next, Fairy Sue introduced the other high-grade divine elixirs. They were all elixirs of the Great Path with extremely precious ingredients. Qin Hao listened quietly. When the names of those elixirs were mentioned, even he was tempted. However, since he had already chosen one, it was not good to ask for a second one. In fact, if this trip went smoothly and he could inherit the will of the superior divine path, coupled with his perfect heavenly wheel to control the way of heaven, wouldn't everything in the Kunlun Sea belong to him? Thinking of this, Qin Hao was relieved. The elixirs were chosen by others one after another. They were all extraordinary cultivators whose names have been mentioned by Zine Clanlord. The Celestial Wolf Lord was a celestial wolf demon who had cultivated to become a god. Lucio and Long Mian also received a divine elixir. Although their heavenly wheels were of the celestial grade, there were still slight flaws and imperfections. It was unknown if the power of the elixir could be used to make up for them, even if it was just a little bit. In short, taking the elixir would definitely be beneficial. Soon, 9 Great Path divine elixirs were chosen, and only one was left. At this time, Zine's eyes fell on a young man in the field. That person's appearance was extremely demonic. He looked like a young man, but a terrifying divine path aura emanated from him. Obviously, he was an old demon who had cultivated for countless years. Xiao Zun now, there's only one high-grade divine elixir left. Is it not good enough for you? Zine said, Clan Lord, you are too serious. As long as it is a divine elixir made in the Kunlun Sea, it is an extraordinary elixir. I will choose this last one. The young man forced a smile and spoke. It was a fake smile, and it gave people a sense of coldness. Many people could see that the young man did not seem to care. It was as if the 10 divine path divine elixirs were not attractive to him. Everyone knew that what this person wanted most was probably the divine path inheritance of the Supreme Lord. However, this was not strange. Everyone present had the same thought in their hearts. Zine saw this and naturally understood. He nodded and said, Everyone, let's enjoy the banquet. Thank you for your hospitality, Clan Lord. Everyone thanked him and enjoyed the delicious food. As the medicinal wine entered their throats, it triggered the will of Wei in their bodies. They felt comfortable all over, and they looked intoxicated, as expected of the Kunlun Sea, where the alchemy way is established. Whether it is the ingredients or the wine, they are all beneficial to cultivation. Although the effect is not as good as the divine elixirs, if one lives in the Kunlun Sea for a long time, it will be greatly beneficial to cultivation over time. It is a pity that after the grand banquet, we will not be able to enjoy these delicacies and wine. Someone at the banquet shook his head sadly. After hearing this, the cultivators from all realms felt the same. If they stayed here and enjoyed the food and wine made with medicinal herbs, their cultivation will be much better than where they came from. Haha, if you're reluctant to leave, you can definitely stay here. If you don't have a spiritual partner, look, there are so many fairies of the Kunlun Sea. They are all beauties, so you can pursue them. However, whether you can get the fairies' favor or not depends on your own ability. Another person joked. The two of them seemed to be joking, but on such an occasion, it really affected the state of mind of the cultivators from all realms. As if to cooperate with them, a few laughter came from somewhere in the banquet. The voices of men and women were mixed together, and there was more than one pair. Everyone looked over and saw that below Master Lu and Divine Lord Tai Chu, many cultivators at the peak of the Nirvana Plain were accompanied by fairies of the Kunlun Sea. The men were talented, and the women were beautiful. They looked like a couple of immortal couples. It was a unique scene. I'm so envious of them. The person who was reluctant to leave before said. His voice was very bright. It would be great if we could be like them. Unfortunately, the fairies of the Kunlun Sea won't like them. Someone cooperated. When Qin Hao heard this, even he couldn't stand it. It was too fake. Since the Kunlun Sea wanted to attract talents with beauty and elixirs, why not improve their acting skills first? Divine Lord Li, is this Empress your spiritual partner? At this time, Qin Xiao asked in a low voice. Even though she had guessed it, she still had to ask. Yes, she is my wife. Qin Hao held Xiao Han's hand tightly. Many people present looked at them. The two of them had a compatible temperament, but the gap in strength was too big. Otherwise, they would be a perfect immortal path couple. Alas, it seems that I don't have a chance. Qin Xiao looked sad. When the experts saw Lotus Fairy's pitiful look, they couldn't help but feel a rush of excitement. Could a goddess as noble as the Kunlun Sea be pursued? I'm afraid, but my brother doesn't have a spiritual partner yet. I wonder if Fairy can give him a chance? Qin Hao gave Wuk a push. Qin Xiao looked at Wuk, but Wuk suddenly looked away. He seemed to be very calm, but in fact he was a little flustered. He is absent-minded. There is no chance. Qin Xiao got up and left. Qin Hao pinched Wuk's thigh hard and said, "What? Go after her. Are you stupid?" Qin Hao raised his foot and kicked Wuk out of his seat. "Fairy, please wait. I have encountered a problem in my cultivation. Can you solve it for me?" Wu Kei chased after Qin Xiao's back with large strides. Qin Xiao seemed to be very angry. When she heard Wu Kei calling out to her, she tapped the ground with the tip of her foot and flew off into the distance. Wu Kei turned into a sword light and followed her closely. "My disciple is too rude." Zine Clan Lord laughed. At this moment, many experts present felt as if they had been scratched by a cat. Their hearts, which had been calm for cultivation, finally began to ripple again. If you're interested in cultivating in the Kunlun Sea, you can cultivate at any time in the future. The Kunlun Sea will also provide enough elixirs to help you reach a higher level. At this time, Zine Clan Lord finally made an open invitation. The experts in the dojo were already on fire. They couldn't sit still anymore. Many of them stood up abruptly, but then slowly sat back down. Joining the Kunlun Sea wasn't a small matter. They couldn't let it get to their heads. They needed to think about it carefully. "Long Yao and I won't enter the Kunlun Sea." Lu Qiu smiled. Zine Clan Lord nodded. They were the princes of Divine Lord Lu and the son of Divine Lord True Dragon. No matter how good the conditions were, they wouldn't join. "I won't join either. I didn't come here for beauties." The gloomy young man stood up and said with a sharp voice. It was like a basin of ice water that woke everyone up. "Oh." Zine looked at the young man and asked, "Xiao Zun, why did you come here?" "For the divine Tao power of Zihua, of course," the young man said directly. Everyone's expression changed. Chapter 2008. After Zihua exalted died, the Kunlun path of the heavens became a land without a master. Many strong cultivators came here to pay homage to Zihua exalted on the surface, but they all had the goal of controlling the path of the heavens. However, the gloomy young man said it out loud, which was a bit too direct. Zine Clan Lord stared at Xiao Zun. At this moment, there seemed to be an invisible power in the space, which shrouded the child who was less than 5 feet tall. For 10,000 years, many people had plotted against the Kunlun path of the heavens, including the ancestors of the Lin clan, the Qi clan, and the Chu clan, but no one could control the path of the heavens. Xiao Zun's heavenly wheel was damaged in many places. He wanted to become the Lord of Kunlun and command the Kunlun Sea. He was ambitious. "You're not qualified. Go back and ask your master Wanmang to come here. Maybe there's still a chance," Zine Clan Lord said in a low voice. He didn't hide his disdain. In his eyes, Xiao Zun wasn't qualified at all. "How do you know if you don't try?" The gloomy young man didn't care about Zine Clan Lord's attitude. He was much older than him, so it didn't matter if he was looked down upon. "You all want to try?" Zine Clan Lord said to the training hall. "We're willing to try." Many strong cultivators stood up and stopped being modest. "Okay, since you're so impatient, I'll fulfill your wish. Follow me to my master's tomb," Zine said loudly. He turned around and walked away. The fairies of the Kunlun Sea followed him. A bunch of ungrateful people. Master Lu snorted. This year's cultivators were too disrespectful to Zine. Then he and Taichu God left their seats and followed Zine. All the strong cultivators in the training hall stood up and formed a long line. They headed to the tomb together. Qin Hao and the others also followed the team. From the attitude of Zine Clan Lord and the gloomy youth, it wasn't hard to tell that the difficulty of obtaining the superior divine power was relatively high. Just now, when Zine's gaze swept across the whole place, there was a faint sense of contempt. It was as if the close to 100 supreme Tao experts present were not qualified. Setting off from the main peak, the group flew through the air, and after a short while, they arrived at a majestic floating island. This floating island stood at the end of the Kunlun Sea. It was extremely large, and a divine aura spread from afar, causing people to feel a heavy sense of reverence. Qin Hao and the others followed Zine clan lord as they flew across the Sky Island. Along the way, they saw many divine Tao spiritual materials growing on the island. They were in strange shapes and were filled with the power of the great Tao. Further ahead, they saw an ancient peak. There was a statue erected on the peak. The statue had a majestic posture and was holding a stone cauldron in its hand. It seemed to be refining the world. One by one, the silhouettes landed on the ancient peak. Patriarch Zine lifted his head to look at the divine statue. His eyes were filled with sorrow, after which he walked up the stone steps with a dignified bearing as he climbed towards the peak. Everyone also walked up the stone steps. This was the tomb where the superior divine power was buried. With the statue here, anyone who dared to be disrespectful would probably be thrown out immediately by Master Lu and Taichu God. This is the tomb where my master is buried. If you want to feel my master's power, feel free to enter and try. Zine said. On the peak, the strong cultivators all had strange expressions as they looked at the huge passageway under the statue's feet. Enter by themselves? So casual? At this moment, many people looked at the gloomy youth. Xiao Zun's expression was very solemn. He stepped forward and walked into the passageway under the statue's feet. This passageway led to the underground palace of the ancient peak where the superior divine power was buried. As for what it was like inside and whether there were other unknown things, only those who entered would know. Xiao Zun came for Zihua divine power. Since he had come this far, he naturally wouldn't be afraid. No matter what was inside, he had to try. Zine watched the gloomy youth's figure disappear into the dark passageway. He stood quietly in place and didn't say anything. The others also waited obediently. If there was danger inside, they could let Xiao Zun try first. When the gloomy youth's figure disappeared under the statue's feet, it was as if he was swallowed by endless darkness. No aura could be sensed. Even the divine consciousness couldn't sense the situation inside. Bang! A muffled sound came from the passageway. It seemed that there had been an attack. Terrifying divine power flowed out from under the statue's feet. Then, the rumbling continued and became more and more intense. It was as if a terrible battle had happened. This movement made everyone cautious. Huan Zun said quietly, "There must be a test in the spirit's tomb." Qin Hao nodded. It should be so. Judging from a movement and the overflowing airflow, to enter the tomb to feel the divine power of the superior divine power, one had to be in the heavenly wheel realm. Even if one was close to the nirvana realm, it would be difficult to resist. Soon, the gloomy youth who had disappeared in the dark passageway reappeared. His face was covered in blood, and his clothes were in a mess. He looked extremely embarrassed, as if he had experienced a fierce battle of life and death. When he returned to the crowd, he took a few deep breaths. The fear in his eyes slowly faded. He gave people a feeling that he had survived a disaster. "How do you feel?" Zine Clam Lord asked. He looked calm as if he had expected this. "I overestimated myself. I'm ashamed." The gloomy youth's face was full of humility. There was no arrogance left. No wonder Zine asked his master to come. It was because his cultivation was too low. In front of the superior divine power, he was not at the same level. Zine smiled and said to the crowd, "Whoever wants to try can go in by themselves. Those who are close to the nirvana realm should not go. It is too dangerous." Everyone looked at each other, their faces filled with curiosity. What kind of scene was this underground palace? Are there many tests in the tomb of the superior divine power? Someone asked. "You will know when you go in. My master left a will. Although the Kunlun Sea does not reject anyone, you still have to act according to your ability." Zine said. His eyes fell on the gloomy youth. His cultivation was not good enough. This was the best example. Everyone looked serious. Xiao Zun, who was so strong, was in such a difficult situation. The difficulty of the test in the tomb of the god could be imagined. But since they were here, they naturally had to go in and have a look. Otherwise, it would be a waste of their heavenly wheels. Old man, let's go in and have a look. An old man went to the passage under the foot of the statue. Soon, there was a violent collision sound. It did not last as long as the gloomy youth. The old man went and came back. Although he came back in a better condition than the gloomy youth, the fear in his eyes was more intense. His body was trembling madly as if he had been greatly frightened. I am ashamed. I am afraid that I will never be able to reach the superior divine power, the old man said sadly. Some people saw that he seemed to have lost a few teeth. Zine Clanlord did not say anything more. He made a pleased gesture. There was a slight commotion in the crowd. After a while, more people entered the passage. However, the result was the same. They returned in a sorry state. Many people were very miserable. When asked about the situation inside, the cultivators who went in did not say anything. What do you think, Long Miao? Shall we go together? Lucio said. They had not come far, so they naturally wanted to have a look. It was not to inherit the divine power of the superior divine power. They were destined by birth and status. In the future, their achievements would not be worse than the superior divine power. Even if they were worse, it would not be by much. Okay, let's go together, Long Miao said. Long Miao said. The two figures walked side by side and disappeared into the depths of the passage. Lucio and the others stayed in the passage for a few hours. Moreover, they did not make much noise. There were only a few strange sounds occasionally. After that, they returned from the passage. They did not change much, but there were some marks on their clothes. Master, how was it? The Rikujinji cultivators asked anxiously. If they really inherited the divine power of the superior divine power, it would be a good thing. Great. I'm not as good as the superior divine power. Lucio sighed. Long Miao also looked a little sad. He seemed to be lamenting about something. The two princes' behavior surprised Zine. Could it be that Lucio and Long Miao had reached that level? Unfortunately, they did not succeed in the end. Brother Chu San, don't you want to go in and have a look? At this time, Lucio said to Qin Hao. He did not have the ability to inherit the divine power of the superior divine power. He wondered how Li Chuji would do. He still had some expectations for his junior brother. Superior divine godly, do you want to try? Zine took the initiative to ask. He was also curious about Qin Hao's performance. Okay, I will go and pay my respects to the superior divine power. Qin Hao said and stepped out. Be careful. Xiao Han pulled Qin Hao's sleeve reluctantly, as if he was afraid that Qin Hao would be in danger. Do what you can, Phantom Zun said telepathically. At first, he was very confident in Qin Hao. However, after seeing so many Heavenly Wheel Realm cultivators return in a sorry state, and Lucio and Long Miao not being able to do anything, his confidence began to waver. Okay. Qin Hao nodded and patted Xiao Han's hand. He walked towards the passage under the statue and disappeared into the darkness. Behave yourself, or else I'll burn you. Crag Tang threw Lin Xian, who was tied up. Lin Xian was forced to spin a few times. Descendant of Lin Du, this is a lesson. Remember, don't be too arrogant in the future. Zine Clanlord glanced at Lin Xian and did not pay much attention to him. Lin Xian saw Zine's attitude and wanted to ask for help, but he swallowed his words. Yes, once one entered the Kunlun Sea, life and death were determined by fate. Even the Lin clan of Kunlun had to follow the rules of the Kunlun Sea. However, the ancestor probably did not know that he was suffering here. At this moment, after Qin Hao entered the passage, his body fell as if he was falling into hell. He felt a surge of power around him. He was suppressed by this power and could not stop it. Soon, the feeling of weightlessness disappeared and his feet landed on the ground. Qin Hao looked up and saw that he was already in a huge underground palace. Everything here was not as luxurious as he had imagined. It was an ordinary stone palace without any treasures. It looked very simple and there were no traps or mechanisms. The scene was very peaceful. Floating tomb. When Qin Hao raised his head, he suddenly saw a giant coffin hanging above his head. It was surrounded by specks of divine light, which prevented it from falling down. However, after he probed it with his divine consciousness, he found that there was only a robe in the coffin. The body of the Supreme Venerable was not in it. There was nothing else except the robe. A cenotaph, Qin Hao said. A floating tomb and a cenotaph. Did the superior divine power not have a body? At this moment, he suddenly thought of something. Why did the Kunlun Sea not contain the body of the superior divine power? Or did they lose the body of the superior divine power? Then why did Zihua fall? Almost reflexively, a series of questions appeared in Qin Hao's mind. He wanted to filter out the truth, but unfortunately, he could not find out. The floating coffin contained the robe of the superior divine power. The underground palace was very quiet, but it was not gloomy and cold. Instead, it felt warm. At this moment, Qin Hao noticed that there was a huge scroll hanging in front of the 4 stone walls of the underground palace. It occupied the entire stone wall. This was an incomparably strange picture scroll. It was strange because there was nothing on it. It was completely empty. It was just a piece of white paper that covered the entire stone wall. Is this wordless scroll the key to hiding the secret of the superior divine power? Qin Hao muttered to himself as he strode forward. Chapter 2009. Standing in front of the empty scroll, Meng Qi felt as if he was facing a whole world, as if the scroll contained the power of the great Tao, boundless and invisible. Qin Hao pondered. Lines of flame appeared in his eyes. He tried to see through the illusion with 1,000 spirit fiery pupils, but found it was just a huge and ordinary piece of white paper. The power hidden in the scroll is fluctuating with the divine will. There must be something mysterious about it. The pressure of the divine might was not an illusion. Standing face to face, Meng Qi felt the Tianluan in his body moving strangely, as if it was attracted by a strange power, forcing the Tianluan to show up. Even if he couldn't see through it, it didn't mean it didn't exist. Maybe his divine power was too weak to break through the shackles of the superior venerable's will. Then he had 2 choices. He could break the shackles by force and launch a divine power attack to break the barriers set by the superior venerable in the scroll. Or he could follow the scroll's guidance and let the Tianluan show up on its own. Judging from the situation when the practitioners entered the tomb of the god of sin, they must have launched a divine power attack in an attempt to break the restriction on the scroll. Unfortunately, they were too weak and were injured by the divine, while left by the superior venerable. Qin Hao had a feeling that the more power he used, the stronger the rebound would be. He would definitely be covered in dust and be in a sorry state. That gloomy young man was like that, the old man was like that, and everyone who stepped into the tomb of the god of sin was injured by the rebound. In the end, they couldn't decipher the scroll, so they were ashamed. Unless their divine power was stronger than the superior venerable, they could break the restriction with one blow. But if they were that strong, why would they come to the Kunlun Sea? Nodding, Qin Hao decided to choose the second option, which was to let go of his mind and will and let the power in the scroll guide the Tianluan to show up. He knew he hadn't reached the superior venerable's level yet. No matter how high the Tianluan's level was, it was impossible for him to break the restriction of the superior venerable's divine will. This underground palace is sealed by the superior venerable's divine will. No matter what happens in here, the outside world won't notice. Qin Hao felt relieved. He closed his eyes slowly and let go of his mind. He was completely relaxed, just like the ordinary people in the mortal world sleeping. How many years had it been? He had almost forgotten the feeling of sleeping peacefully. Ever since he stepped onto the path of martial arts, the 6 senses of cultivators were far stronger than those of mortals. As one's cultivation level increased, one would become more sensitive. Even when resting, one's subconscious would still maintain vigilance. Speaking of which, Qin had never slept soundly before, which was quite pitiful. Emptying his mind, his six senses became weaker and weaker, and his will slowly fell into a deep slumber. Cultivation, life, and death were no longer related. Qin Hao's entire being blended into the environment. At this moment, he looked like a baby sleeping in his mother's arms, wrapped in a warm underground palace. At this moment, something strange happened. The plain and ordinary blank picture scroll suddenly blossomed with an intense light that shone on Qin Hao's body. Strands of divine airflow surrounded him, and the Tianluan in his body moved strangely. It was guided by the power of the picture and slowly emerged. The Tianluan covered his entire body. The power of the blood-red, divine fire was like veins that connected to every part of his body. It slowly circulated and formed an independent body of the great Tao. It was like a complete world. When Qin Hao's Tianluan bloomed, the underground palace was illuminated in red. The light radiated to every corner and filled every particle. This place had completely become his Tao, as if it had turned into a divine domain. If people from the outside world were to see this, Xin, Lucio, Long Mian, and even the Tianluan expert from the various worlds would probably be scared out of their wits. Buzz. At this moment, Qin Hao was awakened from his deep slumber. A powerful and imposing force seemed to have turned into a giant hand that grabbed his soul and forcibly pulled it out of his body and into the empty picture scroll. This is... Qin Hao was startled awake. He opened his eyes and found himself in an incomparably vast world. The sky and earth were pure and flawless. The spiritual energy was untainted. This world was so clean that it was unreal. However, it seemed to have life. Qin Hao could clearly feel a wisp of life aura being nurtured in this world. Similarly, this life aura was still incomparably pure, as if it was not tainted by any dust. Heavenly Path. As the supreme ruler of the divine wilderness continent, Qin Hao was very familiar with this strange life. Although its aura was completely different from the divine wilderness, it was a genuine heavenly path. However, this heavenly path did not have the slightest bit of attribute. It was like its will, clean and untainted. He did not know if it was lucky or sad. A heavenly path without attributes was naturally precious because it could forcibly smelt attributes and derive the power of the realm. It could even smelt multiple attributes. This depended on the ability of the ruler. The sad thing was that it did not. The living beings here were destined to have no special characteristics and could only fend for themselves. Are you enlightened? An incomparably aged voice sounded with a touch of sadness and heartache. At this moment, Qin Hao saw an old man sitting in the incomparably pure sky. Since his back was facing Qin Hao, his face could not be seen clearly. A small cauldron was burning beside the old man. The powerful power of the divine Tao came out of the cauldron and spread towards the world as if it wanted to fill the empty soul of the cauldron and make it shine with its own characteristics. Unfortunately, no matter how powerful the divine power in the cauldron was, it would immediately dissipate and dissolve in the world once it spread out. Even so, the old man was still burning the cauldron tirelessly as if he had been sitting there for 10,000 years. 10,000 years, or 10,000 years, Qin Hao murmured. He was shocked to find that the divine power in the cauldron was actually the old man's own. Zihua was burning himself. He wanted to mend the sky. Kunlun can't reproduce attributes on its own. Wind, fire, thunder, light, all things, evil, ghosts, demons, monsters, and all the forces in the world have nothing to do with it. It's like a lonely child looking at the toys in the hands of other heavenly paths from afar. It's envious but can't get them. The old man said, "That's why you want to mend the sky and make it develop its own attributes." Qin Hao said, "Unfortunately, the old man's ability is too weak, and he failed." The old man slowly turned around and looked at Qin Hao with a sage-like and benevolent face. He pointed at Qin Hao and said with a smile, "And you have the ability to do so. From now on, Kunlun is yours. It's indeed very weak and doesn't even have a single attribute. However, that's exactly what you're good at. Your great Tao of heavenly wheels, Wuk, is where the original power of the chaos resides. You can completely fill any of its flaws and even change it into an original realm one day. Senior, Qin Hao had something to say. Listen to me. Even mortals with dreams are greedy and lustful, let alone cultivators. I know it's very difficult, and your divine power is unbelievably weak. However, the old man has a premonition that you'll become a peerless god in the chaos and create a new world. In the future, you'll be on par with the immortal kings in the Archean world. This isn't a joke. It's strange that the old man has been dead for so many years, but he still has such a premonition with a wisp of his divine sense. You must have an extraordinary background. But senior, my hatred overflows and my love overflows. This old man no longer has anything to worry about in this life. I am leaving, the old man shouted loudly. His body emitted incomparably dazzling divine light. The void seemed to be collapsing, rumbling deafeningly. Then, the whole world became dazzling. The dazzling divine light emitted by exalted Zihua made the clean great path become extremely dazzling. Wisps of divine light made ear-piercing noises as they surged toward Qin Hao and merged into his body. The great path of the Kunlun and exalted Zihua turned into boundless energy and merged with Qin Hao. At this moment, Qin Hao's consciousness seemed to explode. Boundless energy surged into his body like tidal waves. His heavenly wheel began to greedily absorb this energy. All the cultivation techniques, martial arts, and alchemy techniques that exalted Zihua had learned in his life turned into nourishment for Qin Hao's heavenly wheel. The fiery veins around his body became brighter and brighter. The strength of his godly power increased, and his godly soul grew stronger. He could clearly feel that as his godly soul grew stronger, the broken memories of his previous life were reassembled. Everything in the immemorial realm became clearer and clearer. It was as if he had been reborn and had tasted all kinds of life. Time passed by slowly. At this moment, the great path in the underground palace roared. Boundless divine light flew out from the huge blank painting and was absorbed into Qin Hao's body. The light on his body was extremely dazzling. However, no sound could be heard from the outside world, and no aura leaked out. It was completely sealed. Finally, Qin Hao's mind shook violently, as if someone had forcefully stuffed many things into his mind. He felt bloated. Only then did Qin Hao wake up from his deep sleep. At this moment, the painting hanging on the stone wall dimmed and gradually cracked. Then, it turned into dust and dissipated. You and I are fated to be together. Since I've passed on the great path to you, I hope you can take care of the disciples of the Kunlun Sea. The old man's weak voice filled Qin Hao's ears. He knew that Senior Zihua had left this world completely. In the untainted land, there was no more Senior Zihua. However, not only did Qin Hao obtain everything from Zihua, but he also controlled the great path of the Kunlun Sea. At this moment, he could clearly feel the connection between his spirit and the will of the great path. His will was the will of the great path. Under the might of the great path, everything floated and sank because of him. Thank you, Senior. Qin Hao bowed to the bare stone wall. He stood in place and couldn't calm down for a long time. Sure enough, he succeeded in inheriting everything from Senior Zihua and controlling the Kunlun Sea. However, he was shocked by the story of Zihua mending the sky. Senior Zihua burned his great path in order to create a world of living creatures. Although he failed, he couldn't be judged as a hero by his success or failure. In Qin Hao's opinion, Senior Zihua's merits were unparalleled. Sigh, he didn't even let me speak. Such a big family business was forced into my hands. There are so many disciples of the Kunlun Sea, not to mention the Zine clan lord, whose cultivation is unfathomable. Fairy Su, Lotus Fairy, Old Man Lu, and Divine Lord Taichu are all not easy to deal with. I'm afraid my position as the Supreme God won't be stable. Qin Hao looked up and sighed. It was so difficult. It wasn't easy to hand over the divine land to Zhanwu. After a few days, He became the supreme god of a plane. Moreover, the Kunlun Sea was an elemental great path of the heavens. He could refine its attributes and possibly turn it into a second original realm. Qin Hao felt that it was too difficult. With a thought, his body floated up and flew up along the Senior Zi Hua's cenotaph. Qin Hao came out of the passage under the statue and returned to the outside world. At this moment, the outsiders were chatting and talking animatedly. When they saw Qin Hao come out with a heavy face, they didn't take it seriously. They thought that he must be another failure. "How do you feel?" Zine clan lord stared at Qin Hao and found that his clothes were clean and flawless. "I'm not as good as Senior Zi Hua." Qin Hao imitated Lu Qiu and sighed. Zine clan lord nodded and faced the crowd. He said loudly, "If no one else wants to try, then the event will end here. Everyone, please leave with me." The ancestral worship ceremony didn't require the participation of outsiders. These experts didn't have the heart to worship Kunlun Sea. In fact, they were all here for the elixir and the heavenly path of the Kunlun Sea. After Zine clan lord spoke, everyone nodded silently and formed a team to return to the main peak. On this trip, everyone found that it was almost impossible to inherit the supreme god's power and control the heavenly path. They didn't know if someone would create a miracle in the next 1,000 years. However, no matter who it was, it had nothing to do with them. Unfortunately, these people didn't know that someone had already become the controller of Kunlun Heavenly Path and inherited everything from the Supreme God. Now, Qin Hao could command the Kunlun Sea and control the life and death of the 3 great Divine Path families. Reading House. Chapter 2010. After returning to the main peak, Zine clan lord temporarily asked the cultivators from all over the world to rest on the peak. They could move around freely. At the same time, he also asked the cultivators to consider whether they were willing to enter the Kunlun Sea to cultivate and become a member of the Kunlun Sea. Qin Hao and the others were arranged to stay in a cave residence, the Water Moon Cave Heaven, with a pleasant environment. Xiao Han kept staring at Qin Hao with a strange look. Qin Hao smiled and asked, "What are you looking at? Something's different." Xiao Han squatted next to him, holding her cheeks with her small hands and frowning. "What's different?" Qin Hao asked. Xiao Han thought for a moment and shook her head. "I can't tell, but it's a little different from before. It feels strange. Women are so scary," Qin Hao said with a smile. She knew her husband best. Xiao Han winked playfully, waiting for him to give a correct answer. At this time, Qin Hao seemed to have sensed something. He looked outside the cave residence and said, "The people of the Kunlun Sea are coming." Xiao Han heard this and slowly turned around. Just then, a beautiful figure stepped in, dignified and elegant. It was Fairy Su. "Su Qian greets lordly," Fairy Su said. "Fairy Su, you're welcome. Please sit down." Qin Hao got up and greeted her. Su Qian shook her head slightly and said with a smile, "I won't sit. Master ordered me to invite Lordly to the Kunlun Temple. He wants to know Lordly." "Okay." Qin Hao nodded. It seemed that not only Xiao Han had noticed his change, but also Zine clan lord. In fact, Qin Hao had expected this situation when he left the underground palace. "Lordly, come with me." Fairy Su turned and walked out of the cave residence. Qin Hao said to Xiao Han and the others, "You stay here and wait for me." Then he followed Fairy Su out of the cave and turned into a stream of light, heading towards the Kunlun Shrine. When they arrived at the temple, there were only a few people present. Other than the Zine clan lord, there were only Lotus Fairy, Old Man Lu, and Supreme God Tai Chu. They were all heavenly will experts. "Master, Divine Godly is here," Fairy Su said respectfully to Zine clan lord. "Senior Zine." Qin Hao bowed slightly. Zine clan lord nodded and said to Master Lu and the others, "You may leave first." "Yes." Everyone excused themselves. When they passed by Qin Hao, they all stared at him in disbelief. Old Man Lu even coldly snorted, as though he felt that it was extremely unfair. "Master Lu is really narrow-minded," Qin Hao said carefully in a low voice. At this time, An invisible pressure of the divine path fell on Qin Hao's body. The eyes of Zine, clan lord of Kunlun, turned into a pair of golden light. The aura of the divine path that spread out was extremely terrifying, and it heavily crushed Qin Hao's body. "Where's the painting?" Zine asked majestically. It's destroyed." Qin Hao replied. "Destroyed?" Zine's expression was stern. "A mysterious force spread out from the painting and dragged my divine soul into it. I witnessed everything and saw the Supreme Lord." Qin Hao said. Although his will was connected to Kunlun and no one in the heavenly path could hurt him, Qin Hao was still a little afraid when facing Zine Clan Lord. At this time, Zine stared at Qin Hao for a long time. His eyes were extremely majestic, but there was no hostility. After a while, he sighed and said, "It seems that Father has chosen you. You are the one who can change Kunlun." Zine didn't enter the painting, so he didn't know what had happened in the underground palace. But he could completely imagine the result. "Father?" Qin Hao was surprised. "Yes, Zihua Supreme is my father. Release your heavenly wheel for me to see," Zine Clan Lord said. As he waved his sleeves, divine light spread out and isolated the palace from the outside world. Qin Hao saw this scene and didn't hesitate at all. The perfect heavenly wheel bloomed, and the blood-like divine force flowed through his body like meridians. He became one with the great path. At this moment, the palace was filled with an invisible divine might. As expected, Zine was quite shocked. Looking at the heavenly wheel that surrounded Qin Hao's body, his heart thumped wildly. He entered the underground palace and saw that the painting had disappeared. He could no longer feel the divine will left by Zihua when he was alive. This made him understand that someone had inherited his father's will, or rather, the will of Kunlun, and became the new ruler of the heavenly path. To achieve this, one must have an extraordinary heavenly wheel. Lucio, Long Mian, and all the cultivators who had participated in the Kunlun Sea Meet in the past 10,000 years couldn't reach this step. Even the immortal grade heavenly wheel wasn't enough. It could be imagined that only a perfect heavenly wheel could make Zihua give up the will of Kunlun willingly. Zine had already guessed it, but after seeing Qin Hao's heavenly wheel with his own eyes, he couldn't help but feel emotional. The exalted holiness entrusted everything he learned and the heavenly path of Kunlun to me. He also asked me to take care of the Kunlun Sea, especially you. The exalted holiness said that you have a bad temper and like to hide your true self. You show your best to outsiders, but you face loneliness alone. Qin Hao heaved a sigh as if he was possessed by exalted Zihua. "Father, did he really say that?" Zine choked with sobs, and his eyes turned red. No one knew him better than his father. "Yes." Qin Hao nodded seriously. "The exalted holiness asked me to take care of you and ask you to listen to my advice." "Father, I'm unfilial." Zine turned around and secretly wiped the tears from his eyes. At his level, there was nothing that he couldn't accept. He almost never shed tears. Only Zihua's departure was a knot in Zine's heart, and it was a regret. Father passed on everything he learned in his life to you. Speaking of which, you can be considered half his disciple. You can call me brother. Don't worry, I'll follow Father's arrangement and assist you to become the new god of Kunlun. But before that, you need to go through a lot of training. Your divine power is too weak. Zine Clan Lord said. With Qin Hao's current cultivation, how could he take care of the Kunlun Sea? Under the heavenly path of Kunlun, he might barely be able to do it. But once he left Kunlun, he would be restrained if he encountered people like Lucio and Long Mei, let alone God Master level experts. Senior brother is right. We can complement each other. Qin Hao smiled humbly. Zine was easy to talk to. It seemed that his position as the god of Kunlun was going smoothly. Junior brother, where are you from? What's your relationship with the martial god of the sword world? Zine asked. You must have an extraordinary background to be able to forge a perfect heavenly wheel. I'm for the original realm. Qin Hao said. The Archean realm? Zine was shocked. The original realm was known in the Eldritch world, but only the Archean realm. Right, but also wrong. My tribe's roots are indeed in the primeval realm. Because I accidentally made a big mistake, I was exiled to the outside world. As of now, I actually come from another primeval realm. Qin Hao didn't want to hide. Now that he had inherited everything from the Exalted Ones, the Kunlun Sea was his, and he had an inseparable relationship with Zine. His secret couldn't be hidden. Sooner or later, Zine would find out. A second original realm? Impossible. The impact came wave after wave. Zine's spirit couldn't bear it. It's a little troublesome to explain. Senior brother, see for yourself. Qin Hao shot out a ray of divine light from his eyes and flew into Zine's forehead. The other party didn't resist and allowed the divine light to enter his soul. Scenes of the past appeared one after another. 4 lives of tribulations, and he finally became a god. At this moment, Zine knew all of Qin Hao's secrets. His state of mind was slightly affected, and his eyes were filled with surprise. The silver-haired youth standing in front of him was really a rare genius. Although his life was a little bumpy, the results of his cultivation now were very impressive. It was even much better than when he was in the stable Archean realm. After all, in the second original realm, Qin Hao was the supreme god of the heavenly path. Senior brother, you know all my secrets. I hope you can keep them for me. No matter who I face in the future, even those around me, don't tell anyone. Qin Hao said honestly. Zine nodded solemnly, took a long breath, and said, I will keep your secrets for you. You go back to the cave to cultivate first. I need to be quiet for a while. Although the two of them had only met for a short time, the information involved was too vast and involved too many unimaginable things. Zine needed to organize his thoughts. Okay. Qin Hao nodded gently and stepped out of the temple. Zine sat down and began to organize all the information in his mind. There were the difficulties of the Kunlun Sea and the pressure Qin Hao himself faced. After all, now that the two of them were tied together, no matter what he did next, he had to take Qin Hao's feelings into consideration. Qin Hao was not just one person now. He was also the Kunlun god of the Kunlun realm. Zine had to consider all the obstacles in the future in advance and come up with countermeasures. This kid, the pressure on his shoulders is no less than mine. Did father really choose the right person? Zine let out a helpless and bitter laugh. The problems of the Kunlun Sea were already big enough. If they were not handled well, there might be the danger of the realm being destroyed. Even the heavenly Ho god could not handle it. How could he know that Qin Hao's problems were even more serious than the Kunlun Sea? Perhaps this was the arrangement of fate. 2 small boats caught in the storm were tied together. Perhaps only in this way could they safely survive the ordeal and sail to a wider world. Zine, is that kid's heavenly will really at the Divine King level? At this time, many people walked into the temple. Master Lu, Fairy Su, Qin Xiaohe, and Tai Chu came before Zine Clan Lord and looked at him anxiously. Yes, it is indeed at the perfect level. The great path is won, and Wuck is trapped. Zine's words made everyone's hearts tremble violently. He said seriously, Uncle Lu, from today onwards, Chu San will be the new god of Kunlun. Everything in the Kunlun Sea must listen to his arrangements. We must train and assist him with all our efforts. However, this matter must not be made public for the time being. Now, under the calm surface of the Kunlun continent, there were undercurrents. Since the death of the Lord, the Lin, the Chu, and the Qi clan all had different intentions. They all wanted to dominate the heavenly path and command Kunlun. Zine wanted to see if the god ancestors of the 3 big families were still in awe of the Kunlun Sea. If they were not and wanted to step on it, then it was time to get rid of them. Zine did not want the 3 god families to be disobedient when Qin Hao, the new god of Kunlun, ascended and become a stain on the heavenly path. Master Lu and the others all understood and nodded. Who would have thought that kid would suddenly become the god above old man truly? The world is unpredictable, Master Lu said angrily. He had yet to settle the score with Cauldron Spirit. He would not be able to settle the score with Cauldron Spirit in the future. Fairy Su and the others chuckled. Li Chuji becoming the new god of Kunlun was a foregone conclusion. Since the Exalted had handed the heavenly path to him, everything in the Kunlun Sea would obey the orders of the god of Kunlun. Qin Xiaohe could not help but sigh. The Lin clan of Kunlun would most likely face a heavenly tribulation soon. Chapter 2011. After the event ended, the experts from various realms left one after another and returned to their respective planes. Only a small number of people chose to join the Kunlun Sea and stay here to cultivate. There were no Heavenly Wheel Realm experts among them. Heavenly Wheel Realm experts had firm personal beliefs. It was not easy to change their beliefs. Moreover, the selection criteria of the Kunlun Sea were very strict. Even if they wanted to join, they would not be accepted. Therefore, there were very, very few people left for this year's event. Qin Hao and the rest cultivated quietly in the cave. Except for the Illusion Lord, the others were too weak. Wuk and Tang were barely acceptable. Xiao Han was at the bottom of the Kunlun Sea. It would be difficult for her to win against any of the disciples. Xin Clan Lord did not dislike this. After all, the heavenly path was controlled by Qin Hao. Everything in the Kunlun Sea belonged to the Kunlun god. In response to their cultivation, Zi-In ordered people to send over abundant cultivation resources. They were provided with good food and elixirs. Fairy Su, Fairy He, and Divine Lord Taichu would often visit the cave abode and teach Xiao Han and the others some profound skills and virtues. This made the disciples of the Kunlun Sea extremely envious. Fairy Su and Fairy He were the direct disciples of the Patriarch, and they were already supreme Tao warriors. There was no need to mention Tai Chu, as he was a supreme Tao warrior after the High Holiness. His individual strength was extremely strong, and with the guidance of these supreme Tao warriors, Xiao Han and the others improved significantly, especially Wuk and Lotus Fairy. Their life spirits came from the same source. Their cultivation and love were the same. As time went by, the sparks of love were gradually ignited. Qin Hao saw this and was happy for Wuk. Qin Xiaohe was not only beautiful, but her cultivation was also very strong. They were a good match. Thank you for these days, Fairy Su and Supreme God Tai Chu. Qin Hao said, Supreme Godly, don't call us Fairy Su anymore. Just call us by our names. Fairy Su was flattered. Supreme God Tai Chu also nodded. Okay. Qin Hao asked, have all the people who entered the Kunlun Sea left? Basically, everyone who should leave has left, but there are a few who are still here. Prince Lucio and Prince Long Mo didn't leave. They are cultivating on an enchanted island. Qin Xiao said. Lucio and Long Miao sealed off the entire enchanted island, isolating it from the outside world and entering a state of seclusion. Although these two were of noble status and were both princes of the Great Path Sword Realm, they did not belong to the same sword realm, so it was extremely difficult for them to meet. Now that they had the opportunity to gather together and use the immortal island of the Kunlun Sea to cultivate and learn from each other, it was not easy. They all cherished this opportunity. So his name is Lu Qiu. Qin Hao said softly. It was no wonder that the son of Divine Lord Lu was so talented and could forge the celestial wheel. Prince Lu Qiu and Prince Long Mao might have other reasons for not leaving. They probably don't want to go back so early. Su Qin smiled. The son of the Divine Lord had a great undertaking. Whether it was the people around them or themselves, they had extremely strict requirements for cultivation. Basically, they had no free time. Since they had the opportunity to come out, they naturally wanted to relax. Qin Hao nodded gently and didn't pay too much attention to it. Reveredly, I heard from Xiao that you also dabbled in alchemy? Divine Lord Taichu asked. Just a little bit. Qin Hao smiled and said humbly. Xiao Han beside him rolled his eyes. The only alchemy god in the divine barren land only knew a little bit? That's quite similar to me. Although I was born in Kunlun, my talent in alchemy is not high. Speaking of which, I can be considered an orthodox martial cultivator. Alchemy requires the support of a strong divine soul. When one first enters the martial arts stage, the level of their spiritual energy must be high enough. Divine Lord Tai Chu explained, everyone is good at different fields. For example, Illusion Revered is good at the power of space. Senior, you don't have to worry too much about it. Qin Hao saw a hint of inferiority in Divine Lord Tai Chu's eyes. As a divine overlord in Kunlun, it was indeed embarrassing for him not to be proficient in alchemy. I actually don't mind, but reveredly can't only know a little bit. Divine Lord Tai Chu meant that no matter how Qin Hao cultivated in the past or what he was good at, he had to learn alchemy in the future. As the supreme god of Kunlun, the ruler of the heavenly law, he didn't know alchemy. If the news got out, he would be laughed at by the other overlords in the divine barren land. Elixir Peak should be sending someone here soon. Su Qian said. Elixir Peak. Qin Hao was confused. Was Xin going to send someone to teach him alchemy? Tai Chu, Su Qian, and Qin Xiao didn't know about his situation, but Xin shouldn't. Qin Hao didn't hide anything from Xin. He was from the Alchemy Lord tribe in the Archean world. Reveredly, Master Lu of Elixir Peak wants to see you. At this time, a voice came from outside the cave. He's here. Su Qian's eyes lit up and smiled. Reveredly, you should go. Master Lu is a good friend of Exaltedly. Even the sect master has to give him face and call him Uncle Lu. Okay, Qin Hao was helpless. The people of Kunlun Sea were very polite to him now, but old man Lu was very difficult to deal with. It seemed that he was deliberately giving him a cold shoulder. Standing up, Qin Hao walked out of the cave. Tai Chu and the others were here to teach Xiao Han and the others. Elixir Peak, the holy land of alchemy in the Sea of Kunlun, was full of the smell of medicine and the aura of the fire of the Great Path. It was the territory of Master Lu. Qin Hao followed the others to the Pill Peak and entered a majestic concoction room. There were many people waiting for him here. All of them were white-haired old men, and their faces were flushed red. They were brimming with vitality, and their bodies were filled with the smell of medicinal pills. These people were the top alchemy masters in the Sea of Kunlun, and they were also Master Lu's team. You're here, Master Lu said indifferently. Okay, Qin Hao said, and his gaze followed the crowd to look forward. A pill furnace stood at the center of the alchemy room, and it emitted clouds and mist that curled up and flickered with mottled brilliance. Show me what you've got. Let the old man see what you've got. Master Lu pointed at the alchemy cauldron and asked Qin how to try the alchemy. The white-haired elders also looked expectant. Xin Clan Lord had already told them that Qin Hao had inherited everything from Exaltedly, including his alchemy skills. So, how much of Exalted Li's power could this silver-haired young man use? Was he worthy of being the ruler of the heavenly path? Everyone was looking forward to it. Okay. Qin Hao nodded and stepped forward. He sat down in front of the alchemy furnace, and fire particles began to spread from his body. The white-haired old men stared at him without blinking, as if they wanted to remember every detail. After all, this was the heir of Exalted Li, and what he used was Exalted Li's unique skill. At this moment, as Qin Hao's divine will enveloped the alchemy furnace, a layer of flame enveloped it, and the furnace slowly floated up. Qin Hao looked to the side where the medicinal ingredients had been prepared. His palms formed seals randomly, and the spiritual ingredients flew into the alchemy cauldron one after another. Then, the divine fire burned even brighter, emitting an extremely bright red glow. Gradually, the cauldron was filled with the aroma of pills. It looks like it. Quite similar, old man Lu muttered. His movements seemed messy, but Qin Hao's every move was skillful. It was obvious that he used to make pills often and didn't know the basics. However, it was unknown how good his fire control skills were, and whether his divine soul could perfectly melt the herbs into a qualified pill. Master Lu didn't have high expectations. This was his first time making pills, and Qin Hao could guarantee that the furnace wouldn't explode and that the pills wouldn't be defective. It's about time. Qin Hao's robe swelled up as if a strong wind was blowing around his body. He slammed his palm on the furnace, and with a loud bang, the lid flew off. A ray of light shot out from the inside and floated in the air. However, when Master Lu and the old men in the room saw this pill, they couldn't help but shake their heads. Although the pill floating in the air was shining with divine light and emitting an abundant divine path aura, it was black and not round in shape. It was a little deformed, and the color had already betrayed Qin Hao's alchemy skills. It was obviously a defective pill. The higher the expectations, the greater the disappointment. It seems that old man needs to train you well. Master Lu was very disappointed. Sorry, I haven't made pills in a long time, and I'm a little rusty. Also, there's something wrong with this furnace. It's not suitable for me. Qin Hao said with a relaxed expression. Nonsense. There's nothing wrong with this furnace. You're the one with the problem. Master Lu shouted at Qin Hao, ignoring the dissuasion of the people next to him. There's really something wrong with it. Why don't you take out the divine furnace, specially used by Exalted One, and let me try again? Qin Hao made a request. Don't even think about it. Master Lu firmly disagreed. He hadn't settled the score with Qin Hao for what happened last time. He had witnessed Qin Hao making a defective pill. How could he use the divine furnace, specially used by Zi Hua, at such a level? Then I won't make it. Qin Hao got up. No. If you don't make a qualified pill today, old man won't allow you to leave the Elixir Mountain. Master Lu put on a dignified face. What can you do about it? Qin Hao looked straight at Master Lu, and there was a strong sharpness in their eyes. The atmosphere was a little tense. Don't be angry. It's just a small matter to change the furnace. Why don't you let Exalted One try again? Someone hurriedly stood between them. No matter how many furnaces he has, he won't be able to reach Zi Hua's level. Zine made a mistake. It's a disgrace to the Kunlun Sea to let him stay here. Master Lu cursed. As he spoke, he flicked his sleeve forward and a new furnace appeared. Seeing this, Qin Hao didn't continue to argue with Master Lu. He sat on the ground and shrouded the furnace with his divine will. He guided the spiritual materials to fly into it and threw all the medicinal materials in the room into the furnace, which made everyone's eyes widen. Then, he pointed his finger forward and a wisp of red flame swept out and wrapped around the furnace. The fire grew bigger and bigger, as if it was going to burn the room and all the people in it to death. Look, that's it. Master Lu was so angry that he didn't know what to say. Was he going to make pills or burn the room? Many old alchemists also shook their heads. Li Chuji was young and impetuous. It seemed that he really needed to be taught well, otherwise he wouldn't be able to become a great alchemist. Buzz! Qin Hao didn't pay the slightest attention to the others. With a flick of his finger, the enormous flame suddenly separated into 9 streams, and they were like 9 divine dragons that danced about while emitting shaking roars, and they actually directly entered the pill furnace. This scene scared everyone out of their wits. The furnace exploded. The furnace exploded. Everyone, be careful. Master Lu was flustered. He immediately released the heavenly wheel, and the torrential divine power protected his body and the others. Li Chuji didn't know how to make pills at all. He had wasted so many precious medicinal materials, which were specially collected under the orders of Zine Clan Lord and were divine materials. Master Lu's heart was bleeding. However, the furnace didn't explode. As the 9 divine dragons entered the furnace, the medicinal fragrance in the room became stronger. It was so strong that everyone felt as if they had entered a sea of spiritual herbs. Even if they took a breath, their hearts and minds would be stained with the divine materials of heaven and earth. The pills are done. I'll take my leave. Qin Hao left with a cold face. As he moved away, a purple gold divine elixir floated in everyone's sight. This elixir was extremely bright, and the aura it exuded was Wuk of the Great Path. It seemed to contain a perfect world. Chapter 2012. Perfect. In the alchemy room, all the alchemists were shocked. They looked as if they were hallucinating. The divine light of the pill was perfect, and its aura was one with the Great Path. Even Zihua Supreme couldn't make such a divine pill. Was it really made by Li Chuji? Could it be fake? Everyone looked at each other. Let me test the pill and see if it's real. Someone stood up righteously and took Master Lu's hand before taking the pill. He left his last words with tears in his eyes. I've been in Kunlun for hundreds of years. I'm lucky to have been taken care of by Master and Sect Master. Now it's time to repay them. No, no, no. Old man should test the pill himself. As the owner of the Elixir Mountain, it's his responsibility to test the pill. Master Lu pushed the person away and reached for the divine pill. He was about to grab it. Plop! All the alchemists in the room knelt. Master, you can't. Leave this opportunity to us. Master Lu ignored them and put the divine pill into his mouth. He had never seen a pill with such strong divine will and quality. Leave it for others? Dream on. Buzz. Master Lu's expression changed abruptly as the divine pill entered his mouth. Boundless power of the Tao began to circulate, and the divine materials that Qin Hao had tossed into the cauldron immediately unleashed their medicinal effects. Master Lu felt as if he was under a vast heavenly Tao, and everything was flawless. He could actually sense the power of the primitive realm. At that moment, Master Lu's celestial wheel whizzed out. His divine power was released to the limit. Brilliant light surrounded him. His spiritual power began to rise sharply, and the vitality in his body grew crazily. His entire person was changing. His white hair turned black, and his wrinkles disappeared. He became much younger in the blink of an eye. Everyone's expression changed drastically, and their eyes were filled with shock. They were able to clearly sense everything that was happening to Master Lu. Furthermore, even the Master's celestial wheel seemed to have grown. Although it was very subtle, the light of the wheel had indeed spread several inches to places that had not been covered before. Mending the celestial wheel? In an instant, everyone in the alchemy room was shocked. At this moment, Master Lu seemed to have been reborn. He appeared to be in the prime of his life and was in high spirits. He gave off the feeling that he was the master of the world. God. As Master Lu praised, a few drops of tears slowly rolled down from his eyes. Was this the taste of a perfect divine pill? It was wonderful. It was indescribable. He felt as if he had been enveloped by the heavenly path of the original realm and had peeked into the mysteries of the origin of chaos. As a result, the heavenly wheel was nourished and grew visibly. Although the alchemists of the Kunlun Sea could also refine a divine pill that could mend the heavenly wheel, it needed to vary from person to person. The process of refining the pill was extremely difficult, and one wrong step would cause the pill to be destroyed. Moreover, it might not be able to strengthen Tian Luan after consuming it. It would depend on the user's physique and the degree of control they had over their Tao will divine power. Li Chuji had casually thrown all the divine materials in the room into the furnace, and after burning for a while, he had even poured the divine fire into the furnace. He had actually refined such a precious divine pill. No, it was the best. At this moment, Master Lu felt like he was dreaming. It seems that Divine Lord Li has indeed received the true teachings of the Supreme Holiness. His technique has reached the peak. I don't think so. His technique is completely different from the sect masters. Hey, look, there's a crack in this furnace. Just as everyone was discussing, someone noticed that the furnace Qin Hao had used for the first time was damaged. Everyone present was proficient in alchemy. They knew that cracks in the furnace would cause the medicinal essence to be lost, and the alchemy fire would also be greatly affected. It was no wonder that Li Chuji had failed for the first time. Crack! At this moment, the pitch-black pill floating in front of everyone cracked open. Suddenly, a dazzling golden light spilled out, illuminating the huge alchemy room. Everyone looked at the golden pill that was emitting the aura of Wux's great path. Although this pill was not as good as the one Master Lu had taken, it was still a perfect pill. Its medicinal power was not as strong as the purple gold divine pill. I'll test the pill myself. Be careful. This pill might be a trap. Let me give it a try. How shameless of you to say such things. Get out of my way. The alchemy room was noisy. Soon, it was filled with the sound of Tao intent. I was wrong. Sigh. After Master Lu stepped out, He heard the noise behind him getting louder and louder. At this moment, he finally realized how terrifying Qin Hao's alchemy skills were. Humiliating the Kunlun Sea? No, this was a monstrous alchemy god who had surpassed Zihua. He could even change the heavenly Tao of Kunlun. Thinking of this, Master Lu looked up at the sky silently. He recalled Zihua's dream. Perhaps Li Chuji could really fulfill Zihua's long-cherished wish. You're back so soon? Inside the cave, Supreme God Taichu, Fairy Su, and Fairy Lotus were discussing Tao with everyone. They were surprised to see Qin Hao step in. Senior Lu and the other alchemy seniors are very powerful. They can't learn it in a short time. That's why I came back early. Qin Hao's voice was lonely, and there was a hint of sadness on his face. Supreme God Taichu and Fairy Su looked at each other. They guessed that Qin Hao couldn't meet Master Lu's requirements, so he was sent back. It was normal. After all, Master Lu was a good friend of the Exalted One. They had been together for a long time. His alchemy skills were also very strong. In the entire Kunlun, only the sect master could compare to him. It was reasonable that Qin Hao couldn't meet Master Lu's requirements. It's okay. Take your time to learn. Once you step into the divine Tao, you'll live as long as the heavenly Tao exists. As long as the heavenly Tao exists and your faith doesn't break, your lifespan will be unlimited. Supreme God Taichu smiled comfortingly. Qin Hao nodded. Suddenly, a huge rumbling sound echoed outside the cave, causing the cave to tremble. Everyone was startled and couldn't help but go over to take a look. The exalted divine cauldron. Supreme God Taichu looked at the huge divine cauldron at the entrance of the cave in surprise. It was the Exalted One's relic. Master Lu had been taking good care of it. How did it end up here? We're here to pay our respects to Supreme God Li. Supreme God's alchemy skills are unprecedented. Supreme God, please go to the Elixir Mountain and teach us alchemy skills. Not only Supreme God Zihua's divine cauldron arrived. Many old alchemists with white hair lined up in front of the divine cauldron and bowed to the entrance of the cave. This, Fairy Su and Qin Xiao looked at this scene in shock. This was a group of old monsters with the best alchemy skills at the Elixir Mountain. At this moment, Supreme God Taichu also realized that something was wrong. He glanced at Qin Hao. Wasn't he sent back? Li Chuji went to the Elixir Mountain. What happened? Why did so many old monsters come? It seemed like they were here to apologize. Why don't I see Master Lu? Qin Hao glanced around and didn't see Master Lu. Master Lu is organizing a ceremony at the Elixir Mountain to welcome Supreme God Li. Everyone said in unison. Supreme God Taichu's heart skipped a beat. Ceremony? Was he going to hand over the management rights of the Elixir Mountain? If so, this was a big deal. That old guy is so prideful. Forget it. Qin Hao smiled. Old man Lu was scared and probably didn't dare to come. So he gave Qin Hao the divine cauldron to show his sincerity. It's the third day of the lunar calendar. The Elixir Mountain is the most sacred place in the Kunlun Sea and also the lifeline. Since Master Lu is willing to entrust it to you, you must treat it seriously. Supreme God Taichu said. Yeah, we can't let Master Lu wait for too long. Fairy Su said, implying that Qin Hao should go there immediately. Okay. Qin Hao nodded. He just came back, and he had to go again. He rolled up his sleeves and put away the divine cauldron. Accompanied by the old monsters of the Elixir Mountain, the group flew towards the Elixir Mountain. At this moment, Qin Hao was in the limelight, like a moon surrounded by stars. Supreme God Li, your divine fire cauldron was so mysterious that I couldn't understand it. I'd like to ask for your advice. One of the alchemists asked respectfully, humbly seeking advice. This art is extremely difficult to control. It's a secret art of a primordial god clan. I'm sorry, but I can't teach it to outsiders. Qin Hao rejected him on the spot. It's okay, it's okay. Your other alchemy skills are also fascinating. I hope to learn some superficial skills. That person smiled. That's fine. Qin Hao said. The 9 Dragons fire tempering art was the foundation of the Alchemy Supremacy clan. Without the clan leader's permission, he couldn't teach it to outsiders. Supreme God, Li is extraordinary. To be honest, I was shocked by your temperament when I first met you. You're really a celestial. Supreme Godly, I'm willing to serve you. I have a childhood playmate who has achieved the divine path and created the heavenly wheel, but he doesn't want to come to the Kunlun Sea. If Supreme Godly asks, he will definitely come to serve you. Everyone chattered incessantly, trying to flatter him. Qin Hao nodded as he listened. Occasionally, he would frown. Why is Supreme Godly frowning? When they were almost at the elixir peak, someone noticed that Qin Hao was a little worried. Seniors, you don't know. I actually want to talk more about alchemy with you, but I've offended someone. If I can't solve this matter, the sect master might not be able to keep me here. Maybe he'll chase me out of the Kunlun Sea. Qin Hao let out a sigh. Is that so? Who dares to offend Supreme Godly? I'll tell my childhood playmate. He'll definitely solve the problem for you. It's not a big deal. When I first arrived in Kunlun, I was humiliated by the Lin people and had to fight back and kill Lin Rue. The ancestral patriarch of the Lin people won't let it go. If he leads the entire clan to war with the Kunlun Sea, it will definitely implicate you. I don't want to put the sect master in a difficult position. I'd better leave in a few days. Qin Hao said helplessly. No, Supreme Godly can't leave. Do the puny Lin people dare to overturn the heavens? After Supreme Godly left, the three major clans have been looking down on the Kunlun Sea more and more. They've forgotten the fear of being dominated by Supreme Godly. Supreme Godly, don't worry. As long as you say the word, we'll immediately go out with you to destroy the Lin family. There's no need for the sect master to step in. Leave this matter to us. Just wait and see. Voices rang out one after another. Seeing these old alchemists patting their chests and vouching for him, Qin Hao was very touched. They were really a group of righteous friends. As for the Lin family, Qin Hao said that he was willing to give Lin Xin a chance. If others didn't offend him, he wouldn't offend them. Chapter 2013. After the end of the Millennium event, the cultivators from various realms who stayed in Kunlun to cultivate in the Sea God's relic left one after another. Almost all of them had left. Lu Qiu and Long Miao sealed the deity island and went into seclusion. Not only were they isolated from the outside world, but they were also isolated from the Kunlun Sea. They still hadn't returned to the Sword World. Many cultivators had benefited greatly from this trip. They had obtained many benefits from divine elixirs, miraculous medicines, and opportunities. However, no one had inherited the Supreme Venerable's divine path inheritance. It had become an everlasting regret. The Kunlun continent was special. The Supreme Venerable Zihua was a powerful cultivator who was close to becoming a divine master. If one wanted to succeed the Supreme Venerable to control the Kunlun continent, one had to be a powerful cultivator. On the other hand, those powerful cultivators were all dominators of their own realms. They naturally wouldn't abandon their current positions and switch allegiance to the Supreme Venerable Tianyong. The people of Kunlun didn't find this strange. On the contrary, it would cause a sensation if someone replaced the Supreme Venerable to control the heavenly path. However, this didn't stop some monstrous cultivators from rising. For example, Qin Hao. Now, the most eye-catching name in Kunlun continent was Li Chuji. It was rumored that Li Chuji became famous in the event. No one could stop him. He broke several great path miraculous relics and obtained the Sword Emperor's ultimate technique. He also comprehended the Dragon Clan's supreme technique, the True Dragon Roar. He also grasped the essence of the Dragon Fan Buddhist way and turned the True Dragon Roar into the Sorrowful Dragon Roar. The Sorrowful Dragon Roar intimidated Long Miao of the True Dragon Clan and made him admit that Li Chuji possessed the Dragon Clan's divine technique. However, compared to these, what was more frightening was that he had killed Lin Rue and almost all the clansmen of the Lin people who had participated in the event. No one knew whether Lin Xian, the eldest son of the Lin people, was alive or dead. After Supreme God Gui too escaped, he reported this matter to the higher-ups of the Lin people and spread it throughout the Kunlun continent. Unknowingly, a storm was brewing in Kunlun. However, the Lin people didn't immediately send troops to invade the Kunlun Sea. They remained silent for a long time until everyone in the Kunlun martial arts world thought that the Lin people were afraid of the Kunlun Sea. Today, the Lin people of the divine Tao came out of their nests and pointed their swords at the holy ground of the Exalted One's orthodoxy. Is that an expert from the Lin people? The black mass of the army whizzed past above their heads like dark clouds that covered the sky. When the people below raised their heads, they were all shocked. Something doesn't seem right. Someone narrowed his eyes. After seeing the army in the sky clearly, he exclaimed, "It's the powerful cultivators of the Qi people, one of the 3 aristocratic families, the Qi clan." Everyone's expression changed. The Qi people were also one of the unshakable giants in Kunlun continent. Why did they send out an army? Could it be? Everyone looked at each other. Faintly, they all smelled an unusual aura. The atmosphere was inexplicably oppressive. It seemed that Li Chuji's mess wasn't simple. This time, even the sky of Kunlun might change. Buzz! Just then, another huge army arrived. They followed closely behind the Qi people's army and also headed toward the Kunlun Sea. The Chu clan, someone exclaimed. His heart was beating violently. Did the Chu clan also come out in full force to get involved in this mess? Everyone could feel the seriousness of the situation in Kunlun. For 10,000 years, the 3 aristocratic families had been living in harmony. Now, with a sudden change, the 3 families all came out. But no one knew which side the Chu clan was on. In the sky, the Qi and Chu armies moved forward quietly. At this moment, at the front of the Chu clan's army, a dignified middle-aged man stood with his hands behind his back. His robe fluttered in the wind, and his aura was oppressive. "Father, the Qi clan has sent out an army. It's possible that they're trying to strengthen the Chu clan's prestige," Chu Ning said. Chu Ning said with a solemn expression. The leader of the Qi people nodded silently. It was the spies that the clan had planted in the Qi clan. They heard that the other party would move out today. So, on the same day, the Chu clan also prepared to reinforce the Kunlun Sea. If that person is really as talented as my sister said, then he's worthy of us doing this for him. A general in silver armor chuckled. He was Chu Ning's second brother, a powerful cultivator in the Heaven Wheel realm. He was also the strongest person in the Chu clan other than the Grand Elder and the clan leader. Chu had heard a lot of rumors about Qin Hao from Chu Ning, and he found it more and more interesting. He supported the clan's decision to reinforce the Kunlun Sea with both hands. First of all, Qin Hao had saved Chu Ning, so they owed him. Moreover, this trip was not just for Li Chuji, but also related to the future of Kunlun. The consequences would be very serious. The Lin people have mobilized all their elites. This battle is not as simple as saving face. If we sit back and watch the Lin people defeat the Kunlun Sea, the Chu clan will be next, the Chu clan leader said. The Chu clan leader said. He was very clear about the situation. The Kunlun Sea had been in decline for many years. No one knew how much combat power they had retained from their peak, but at least the Zine clan lord and Master Lu were able to hold on. However, if the Qi people enter the battle, it would be hard to say. Therefore, at this time, the Chu clan had to make a move, not just for Li Chuji. Will grandfather make a move? Chu Ning asked. He will act according to the circumstances. Let's see what the Lin people and Qi Zu's attitude is. Ning-er, after Li Chuji came out of the tomb of the exalted martial artist, did you really have that kind of feeling? The Chu clan leader asked very cautiously. It's not really a feeling, but it's very strange. Chu Ning scratched her head. She couldn't explain it clearly, but she did feel a slight change in Qin Hao. It was also because of this that the Chu clan leader made up his mind. Chu-one. Suddenly, a loud shout came from the void. The Chu clan leader looked into the distance and saw a pitch-black army standing in front of them, blocking their way. Forest Seedling. Chu-one's eyes narrowed. The Lin clan leader had personally led an army here. The lineup was really strong. Forest Seedling stared at Chu Wen from afar with a strong threat in his eyes. He said coldly, "I heard that your daughter Chu Ning has taken Li Chuji as her master. He is the person I must kill today. I hope the Chu clan won't do anything stupid." Stupid? Chu Wen smiled and said, "Is the Lin people teaching me how to do things?" He didn't know who the stupid person was. If Chu Ning's feeling wasn't wrong, then the Lin clan couldn't touch Li Chuji. "I won't talk nonsense with you. What does the Chu clan want to do?" Forest Seedling's expression was stern. He wanted to know the Chu clan's position. "I just had nothing to do and was afraid that the clan's children would be bored, so I took them out for a stroll. I don't understand what the Lin people mean at all." Chu Wen raised his head and said, looking as if he had nothing to do with it. Forest Seedling frowned and released a terrifying divine path pressure. The strong wind danced wildly and was filled with burning power. It was as if he had become a furnace. If the Chu clan came for Li Chuji and were determined to go against the Lin clan, then he wouldn't mind destroying the Chu clan outside the Kunlun Sea. At this time, as Forest Seedling released his divine path pressure, Chu Wen's body also shone with divine light. The surging divine path pressure swept forward and collided with the Lin people's aura. The atmosphere between the two armies became more and more intense. "I just came out for a stroll and didn't expect to run into two giants of the Kunlun continent. How rare." A voice sounded from the void. Then, the silver-haired Qin Hao slowly appeared between the two armies. He glanced at Lin Xian and said, "Your father is here to take you away." Lin Xian's hair was disheveled, and his aura was so weak that it was like a mortal's. He was completely different from a few months ago. He was tied up with a rope and was lifted into the air by Kuang Tang. His lifeless eyes were filled with hatred. He looked up at the Lin people army in the air. "Therefore, I crippled his cultivation as a form of punishment. This has nothing to do with the Lin clan. It's not too late for you to go back now. I won't pursue this matter," Qin Hao said as he looked at Feng Tang. Feng Tang nodded. He waved his hand to remove the ropes on Lin Xian and kicked him out. Immediately, a Nirvana heavenly emperor flew out from the Lin people and hurriedly caught Lin Xian, whose cultivation had been crippled, and brought him back to the army. Seeing this, the Chu clan leader frowned slightly. Li Chuji had taken the initiative to let Lin Xian go because he wanted to keep the peace. However, when Chu Wen saw this scene, he couldn't help but find it laughable. The Lin family had dominated Kunlun for thousands of years and had risen step by step to become the strongest tribe among the three clans. The ancestor of the Lin family, Lin Duda, had the ambition to control the heavenly path. How could Li Chuji want to keep the peace? But considering the changes that had happened to Qin Hao, Chu Wen sighed silently in his heart. After all, he was the controller of the heavenly path. Indeed, he should have this kind of magnanimity. If he couldn't forgive the common people, how could he become a supreme god? Moreover, Lin Xian's fault was his own. It had nothing to do with the Lin people. "Father." Lin Xian returned to Forest Seedling's side and cried. Forest Seedling stretched out his hand and touched Lin Xian's face with heartache. He turned to Qin Hao, and his eyes became extremely sharp. He said, "Take him down and cripple him. I want his ending to be 100 times more miserable than Xian Er's." Lin Xian's injuries to the laws were extremely difficult to heal, even with the heavenly wheel alchemy Dao. Even if it was healed, who knew how long it would take? Now that his son had become immortal, his lifespan was less than 100 years. Could he wait until that day? Lin Xian's life had been completely ruined by Li Chuji. Qin Hao coldly glanced at Forest Seedling. As the supreme god of the heavenly path, he had taken the initiative to let Lin Xian go so that the Lin people could continue to establish themselves in Kunlun. Unfortunately, the other party didn't know how to be grateful. In the ray of light, figures with powerful auras disappeared, causing Forest Seedling and Qi people to frown. Very quickly, the multicolored light fell into the field, and a group of mighty figures appeared behind Qin Hao with powerful auras. Seeing this scene, countless cultivators in the city below were shocked. Master Hai Lu and the fairies of Kunlun had come out of the mountain. At this moment, Master Lu, Fairy Su, and Fairy He stood beside Qin Hao. The three Heaven Wheel cultivators released their auras and immediately suppressed the battle array. The Lin people and Qi people did not dare to act rashly. Master Lu, Forest Seedling, looked at the old man with a serious expression. This was a master of the same generation as the Supreme Venerable. His seniority was not lower than that of the patriarch of the Lin people. This time, even the chief of the Qi people felt a bit of pressure, but he quickly adjusted himself. He took a deep breath and bowed to Master Lu. "Greetings, Senior Lu. Does the old man still deserve to be a senior in the eyes of the Qi people?" Master Lu said coldly. He glanced at the battle array of the two clans. There were more than 10 Heaven Wheel cultivators and all the holiness of Nirvana elites. Were they going to ask for him or force him to come out? "Senior, you must be joking. No matter when, you are always a senior in the eyes of the three major families. But I didn't expect that the Kunlun Sea would protect a murderer. As the former head of the Sect of Heaven, if the Supreme Venerable were still alive, he would be very sad." Qi people sighed. "Don't pretend in front of the old man Li Chuji is a distinguished guest of the Kunlun Sea. If anyone dares to touch him..." Master Lu stomped his foot lightly. Boom! The void shook violently. "Kill without mercy." Master Lu said seriously. "Master, are you joking with us?" Forest Seedling's eyes darkened. "Kill without mercy?" Until now, did the Kunlun Sea still think that they were the head of the Sect of Heaven and had the ability to kill without mercy? "The old man never jokes," Master Lu said coldly. He flicked his finger toward the sky. A beam of divine light shot from his fingertip into the sky. Then, in the distance, figures appeared in the sky one after another. Not only did they come from the Kunlun Sea, but they also came from all directions. They surrounded the Lin people and Qi people and trapped them here. "That's Divine Lord Taichu." Guitu looked at one person and saw an extremely tall overlord in a black robe walking in the sky. Every step he took made people feel as if he was stepping on the world. 3 heavenly wheels and the overlord of the Elixir Mountain of the Kunlun Sea. Qi people glanced over. Not only Divine Lord Taichu, but also an old man in a white robe appeared on the left and a young man on the right. They were all emitting the energy of heavenly wheels. The elder of the Lin people turned around and saw this scene. His face twisted, and his divine will guided the divine sword and slashed at the figure standing at the front of the Lin people's army. Over there, Qin Hao's divine steps trampled the heavens. With a single step, he killed many members of the Lin clan. "I'm avoiding you not because I'm afraid of you. I just want to finish off the small fries quickly and end this battle. Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish." Qin Hao stared coldly at the clan elder of the Lin clan. He stretched out his palm to the side, and the great void sword turned into an emerald light shadow. It was shaped like a 3-foot sword. With a sweep of his sleeve, it pierced through the air and attacked. Clang! The great void divine sword collided with the opponent's divine weapon. There was a strong particle light, and both swords flew backward. At this moment, a terrifying dragon roar reverberated. In the void, an incomparably huge divine dragon phantom was born behind Qin Hao. It suppressed the heavens and earth and roared at the Lin clan elder with shocking sound waves. The sound spread across the battlefield. Countless people felt like their minds were about to explode and their blood was boiling. Especially the emperors of the Lin and Qi clan. Their 7 orifices were bleeding. It was a shocking sight. They felt like a divine dragon was flying towards them. It seemed to have broken into their divine souls and tore them into pieces. Their consciousness became blurry instantly. At this moment, the experts of Elixir Mountain and the cultivators of the Chu clan acted decisively and killed many of the experts of the Lin and Qi clan. True Dragon Roar. The expression of the elder of the Lin clan was ugly and uncomfortable. He looked at the shadow of the divine dragon behind Qin Hao, and a dragon might that could suppress the universe enveloped him, causing his legs to tremble uncontrollably. He wanted to kneel down on the spot. The supreme technique of the true dragon sword realm, True Dragon Roar. It was indeed terrifying. Li Chuji's roar affected the entire battle. At this moment, Qin Hao's eyes were filled with disdain. He couldn't take it anymore. He hadn't even used his full strength. Men, go and help Elder Lin. Qizhua pointed in Qin Hao's direction and shouted loudly. It was too terrifying. When that dragon roar swept out, even if they were protected by their clan's divine experts, they still felt a splitting headache. Lin Rui died at the hands of Li Chuji. At that time, Guei, too, didn't even have the ability to stop him. This made Qizhua very clear that a Tianlun couldn't suppress Li Chuji. If they continued to fight, the elder of the Lin clan would definitely die. Kill. Immediately, two figures flew out from the Qi people's army. They were surrounded by Tianlun halos and emitted powerful divine path energy. Chu Yu and the eldest son of the Chu clan killed their way into the Qi people's camp.